The meeting to order, roll call please.
Anthony,
Here.
Mr. Ambeline,
Here.
Ms. Greenfield is here.
Here.
Ms.
Here.
Green,
Here.
Mr. McSween is absent. Mr. Rivera.
Yes.
Mrs. Mara.
Here. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Bernardsville News and Courier News, filed with the municipal clerk, and posted on the municipal bulletin board on December 15th, 2022. Please stand and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God. Welcome to the October 23rd, 2023 meeting of the Bernardsville Borough Council. This meeting is being conducted in person in the council chambers in Borough Hall, and it is being broadcast live on YouTube and on Zoom to make it as convenient as possible for residents to attend the meeting. Members of the public who are here in person and those attending remotely on Zoom will be given the opportunity to comment at appropriate times during the meeting in accordance with the following guidelines. Members of the public will be allowed to speak during the open session and during formal public hearings on the agenda, including public hearings on ordinances. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker, which will be monitored and enforced by the borough clerk. Comments containing offensive, profane, or indecent language or language constituting hate speech will not be permitted. Remote participants will be muted unless they are unmuted by the clerk, and remote participants will not be able to unmute themselves. The clerk will mute remote speakers at the expiration of the 3 minutes of allotted time, or if they make any inappropriate or offensive comments. All speakers, whether in person or on Zoom, shall state their names and addresses before making their comments. Speakers on Zoom shall activate their cameras so that they can be seen by members of the governing body and the audience. Failure of the governing body to provide a live broadcast of the meeting or technological problems encountered during the course of the meeting that affect remote viewing and or participation will not invalidate this meeting or any action taken, including but not limited to the adoption of any ordinance, resolution, or motion. There'll be a quiz on that at the end. Presentations. We are excited to be swearing in to the new police officer, so I will turn it over to our chief.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. Rest of the council, also, thank you very much. Nancy, thank you for your help as our administrator through this process. It's a great night to be here with everybody and swearing two new officers. We're going to start with Brianna. We're very excited. Brianna, come on up here a minute. Brianna is our first female officer in Bernardsville in over 20 years. We're very Brianna is a resident of Booton. She's been with Morris County Corrections for about the last 5 years. She has several friends and family here tonight, including her parents, it's John and Lisa, and her boyfriend Sam. So whoever is going to hold the Bible for you, have them come up. Anthony,
The left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. And do this and repeat after me. I, Brianna Stednick, do solemnly swear
I, Brianna Stednick, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of New Jersey.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of New Jersey,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the government established in the United States
and to the government established in the United States,
and in this state under the authority of the people.
and in this state under the authority of the people,
That I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
perform all the duties of patrol officer according to the best of my ability.
perform all the duties of a patrol officer according to the best of my ability,
That I will not use my office to grant preferential treatment,
and that I will not use my office to grant preferential treatment,
nor to seek personal gain, favor, or advantage,
nor to seek personal gain, favor, or advantage,
not available to the general public, so help me God.
not available to the general public, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That would be helpful. Yeah, I'll remember the guy.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Well, congratulations.
Don't forget that. Connor, come on now. Connor comes to us from the NYPD. He is a resident of Bernardsville and a graduate of Bernards High School. Not Connor's fault. Our vendor from the uniforms could not fit his long leg. So he's without a uniform tonight, but he's got some coming very shortly. His parents are here tonight. It's Jim and Dolores.
Yeah, that's right.
His sister Corinne and girlfriend Valerie, I believe also, and also some friends and family here also. Anthony. Having leverage coming out of the Bible, bring them on up.
I, Connor Nord, do solemnly swear
I, Connor Rohr, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of New Jersey,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the government established in the United States
and to the government established in the United States,
and in this state under the authority of the people,
and in this state under the authority of the people,
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
perform all the duties of patrol officer according to the best of my ability,
perform all the duties of patrol officer according to the best of my ability,
and that I will not use my office to grant preferential treatment,
and that I will not use my office to grant preferential treatment,
nor to seek personal gain, favor, or advantage
nor to seek personal gain, favor, or advantage
not available to the general public, but help me God.
not available to the general public, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great night.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Moving on to the agenda, we have approval of minutes. For August 28th, and September 1st. Do I have a motion? Second. All in favor? We now have an open session for items that are not listed for a public hearing, so these are just anything general. We will have separate hearings on each of the ordinances coming up. So if anyone would like to make a comment in general, please, if you're here, stand on the silver X. If you're on Zoom, please use the little hand icons and raise your hand. And make sure to give your name and address.
I'm Mary Fran Daly. I'm from Clinton, New Jersey, and I'm your librarian. And I just wanted to share that at our last board meeting, well, prior to that, on 2 Thursdays ago, our bids for the restroom projects were open. And the lowest bid was $167,000 and a few more. And there's an agenda that was $2,500 for that bid. At our last board meeting, we made resolutions to accept the bid, the lowest one, and to move it to you. In addition to moving an additional $30,000 to you from our capital fund, so that it can cover the entirety of the project. So,
It's on the agenda.
so yeah, oh, it is on the agenda.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It's not on the list, but it's on there.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions? So that,
No,
Yep.
no, it's time to do this.
at long last.
Yeah,
Harbor Long, Lloyd Road.
there you go, the silver X on the floor. There you go, perfect.
Harbor Long, Lloyd Road. I would like to suggest that you do something about the parking for people wanting to come to meetings. Especially in the fact that, like, we were told you weren't going to have the audio tonight. Or the Zoom.
We didn't say that.
It was in the newspaper. And I heard that all over town.
No, we never said we wouldn't have the audio.
Because if you're not going to in the future, I just think we need to free up a few more parking spaces.
Yes, you are absolutely right. Thank you.
I probably, perhaps what was in the paper was that we weren't gonna have Zoom for any of the land use meetings anymore. I didn't read the article, but at the last meeting, we
Right.
talked about Zoom was not gonna be an option for land anymore,
Right. That's
but
right.
it will be an option for the
Council. Yeah, anyone out there? Anything else?
Anybody raising their hand?
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, Joanna.
Yeah, just a real quick thank you for arranging for the change for the centennial on the November 4th from when it was on the 5th, because the visiting nurses really appreciate that you arranged to do that. That was really important that they kept that date since we're trying to install it for the adult thing. So thank you.
Good. And we changed the name.
Yeah, Atlantic.
Thank you. Somebody else?
raise their hand, no.
Not seeing any other, I will close the public hearing. And we will move on to the ordinance 2023-1979, prohibiting smoking in outdoor dining areas in the downtown district, and amending Article 12 of the Borough Code entitled zoning. I will open a public hearing on this ordinance, if anyone would like to be heard.
I will just say one thing, which is, this is just basic with public health policy. It's consistent with statewide policy, prohibiting smoking in public places, and therefore, we are very hopeful that you'll, see it favorably. And by the way, I'm Tony Moore with Community Crisis.
Stay there. Yeah, just what we added in this was the vaping and chewing tobacco and the other things that relate to that. But tell them about your award.
Oh, you're really putting me on the spot. We just found out that we're going to be getting a national award, Community in Crisis, our prevention work. We'll be traveling to the White House on Monday. You know, best part of it is that we'll be accompanied by one of our high school students. Fiona Italia is going to be going with us, and will be recognized as one of the top 3 or 4 new spokespersons in the country. So we're very excited about that. There'll be more later. We're not supposed to spill the beans too soon, but we have video and press releases after that.
That's great.
I also would like to take the opportunity to plug Hub Club for middle schoolers. It is so great for the children to get involved at a young age before it's kind of like, you know, that peer pressure stuff when you learn it in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. It makes it so much easier when they're in their high school. I'm learning this now. Thank you very much. My oldest is 14 and a freshman, and he has zero interest in many of the things that other freshmen are interested in, which I'm very happy about. And I was talking to a lot of moms, and we all credit Hub Club and Community Crisis.
Your timing could not be better. We have a new session starting Wednesday.
I know, right?
So sign up, and then we have our Youth Leadership Council for the high school kids, which just does remarkable things. So thank you for that plug.
Great, thanks, Tony. Excellent work you do there. Anyone else want to be heard on this ordinance? Seeing none, I will close the public session. Jay, you want to do it?
I need to pass ordinance 2023-1979 on final reading and adopt the public.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Langley,
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
All right, we have a public hearing on ordinance 2023-1981, making detached accessory dwelling units a permitted accessory use in the R1 and R110 zones and supplementing and amending Article 12 of the Borough Land Development Regulations entitled zoning. And this, we did get the information from the planning board, but then we found it not.
You can see the mayor, they did recommend that we add in the standards with the part of the conditional use standards. So I worked with the planner, John Zabo, and added those into this ordinance.
Right, which has the limited number of people and the size.
Exactly. So it's worth explaining that I asked that you completely the ordinance, or amend the ordinance, and the public hearing on it was amended until the November 13th.
Okay. So do I have a motion to continue the public hearing on November 13th? Continue public hearing to November 13th.
Go to amend that.
Amend it.
Yes, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It will be November 13th. Okay. All right. Moving on, we have a public hearing on ordinance 2023-1983, an ordinance of the Borough of Bernardsville, County of Somerset, New Jersey, granting a tax exemption with respect to certain property identified on the borough's tax map as block 125, lots 1, 2, and 3, 3539 Alcott Square, 5 Morristown Road, and authorizing the execution of a financial agreement with AR as Bernardsville Urban Renewal LLC. Before I open the public session, I would like to, we've gotten several letters from residents, and I would like our attorneys and NW to address some of those issues ahead of time. I have a feeling that's what a lot of the questions will be about. So Matt Jessup, who is our redevelopment attorney, and Dan, the two Dans.
Good. So good evening, everyone. Matt Jessup, Manager of Scotland and Bowman, the Redevelopment Council. And with me again, Dan Marinello and Dan Banger from NW Financial, the borough's financial advisor in connection with the pilot and the proposed financial agreement. As a reminder, you have before you an ordinance that would approve a financial agreement. The financial agreement runs for a term of not to exceed 35 years from the date of execution, but it's a 30-year tax exemption, which commences upon the date of completion of the project. So once the certificate of occupancy is issued, the taxes come off, the pilot comes on, they start paying pilot for the next 30 years. As you all know, this property is the subject of a ground lease between the underlying property owner and the redeveloper. I think I mentioned last time that ground lease is for a 30-year term. That 30-year term actually commenced in 2021. So understandable question, what happens when the ground lease ends? Let's say it's 4 or 5 years at this point before the financial agreement. At the end of the ground lease term, the property is conveyed to the developer. It does not go back to the property. So think of this more as a lease purchase than a true commercial lease. So for the entire term of the financial agreement, that 35-year period, our redeveloper is either the ground lessee with the rights to own, occupy, quiet enjoyment, views, etc. of the project, or they are the fee simple owner of the property. The financial agreement calls out the schedule of the pilot. If you recall, it is a percentage of annual gross revenue. Statutorily, that can't be less than 10%. In this case, our schedule starts at 10%, it ramps up to 11%, it then ramps up again to 12%. And in certain years, we also evaluate whether the pilot is that amount or the greater of a percentage of conventional taxes, if the property at that point were conventionally taxed. 20%, 40%, 60%, 80% of conventional taxes. That annual gross revenue is exactly that. It is all revenue from the project, all of which is subject to audit. So the borough will see all revenue generated by the project and receives their 10, 11, or 12% of each of those amounts. We are exempting the land in connection with the residential portion as dictated by statute. That means that the residential component will not pay land taxes, and as a result, they will not get a land tax credit against the pilot, which, as we discussed last time, actually inures to the benefit of the municipality. We are not allowed to exempt the commercial component from paying land taxes, so that piece will continue to pay land taxes. In addition to the pilot, the borough will receive an annual 2% administrative fee. That's 2% of that year's annual service charge. That was that's highlighted in the numbers that NW had put out about a month ago, and I know everybody has seen. If there is a transfer of the project, a portion of the project, a transfer within the end of the URE, either to another URE or a partial transfer, the borough is entitled to a 2% transfer fee. I know there were some questions about why not more. The long-term tax exemption law dictates that 2% fee. So there is not a legal ability to go charge a 5% fee or a 10% fee or somewhere. So we are charging the statutory maximum fee that we can under the long-term tax exemption law. In the event of a default, under the financial agreement, the mortgage lender for the developer will have the right to come in and cure, right? The mortgage lender would insist on that in any commercial transaction. Similarly, in the event of a default by the redeveloper under the ground lease, the lender is able to come in and has a right to cure as well. Importantly, our financial agreement continues, right? So if this developer builds the project, is running it, and
Sorry.
Sorry, this was.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, everybody's looking up.
No, it landed on me, sorry. It's in the road.
Yes, it's up there, it's up there.
It landed on you.
So again, in the event of a, event of a default of our redeveloper under either the financial agreement or the ground lease, the mortgage lender has the right to come in and cure those and continue to operate the project, at which point, importantly, our financial agreement continues in effect with the project. There is no concern about an underlying mortgage of the ground lessor per the title commitment was previously filed with the planning board as of March 2023. There is no indebtedness or financial lien on the property. So, and one of the issues raised was what happens if the ground lessor defaults their obligations to the bank? There are no financial obligations to the ground lessor. So that is not an issue. Again, if at the end of the term, property automatically reverts to the developer. There are purchase options earlier. So if something were to happen earlier, that sale can happen earlier than the end of the 30-year term. Let's see, what else do we have? I think the remaining items from my perspective are open issues maybe that NW can address with respect to the pilot and the school children analysis, the municipal cost analysis, et cetera. So for a moment, let me turn it over to them.
Thank you. Good evening. Dan Marinello, NW Financial Group, and I have Dan Banker with me as well, who did a lot of the analysis. So I'll let him go through some of the specific of the details, but I did want to address some of the concerns that came up in some of the municipal letters and the newspaper articles. One of the big one, obviously, being school children. It's a touchy subject. It's very difficult to deal with. I'm sure, it would be nice if we all had a crystal ball. We do our best to project what we believe based on is great information that we can get as to what the school students that are going to come out of this project are going to be. But the truth is that our analysis is not about the school students. Our analysis is about whether or not this project could be built without the enhancement of a pilot agreement, which we've been through that analysis and we've shown that, in our opinion, we don't feel that it would be built the way it has been projected without a pilot. The pilot itself, it seemed, the article made it seem like there was very little tax or pilot being made, but essentially it's 67% of what we have determined of conventional taxes from the beginning. It moves to somewhere over 70% between years 11 and 20. And then for the most part, near the end, it's about 80% of conventional taxes. So it's not as big a break as one might think. And all of the revenues that are coming in from the pilot are going to the municipality, which goes towards your budget and which goes to help and benefit all the taxpayers, whether it's the school budget or the municipal budget, it's the taxpayer who's getting the benefit of that. Right now, you have a property that is bringing in about 70,000 in tax revenue. And you are now going to have a building built that is going to bring just about $400,000 in revenue. So all in, that is an enormous advantage to the taxpayers. As far as school students, and the article made it sound as if it costs $21,000 every time there's a new school student that comes into the school. That's just not true. If you take the total budget of the school system and you divide it by the number of students, that's what you get. But most of what's in that school budget are costs that don't change if a new student comes to town. If a new student comes to town and moves into your school, it doesn't cost the school $21,000. All of that, and most of that is in debt service, it's in administrative costs, it's in teacher salaries and benefits, things that are not additive with a new student. In fact, in our analysis, we use the number of about, I think it was 10,000, which is the cost of classroom instruction. When you break up the school budget as it does for the state, there's a line item in there. Now, even that line item that we use, and we've talked to many administrators within the schools, is also a number that is significantly conservative. It doesn't cost $10,000 every time a new student comes into your schools. But it's a number that we use because it's easily identifiable. It's in the budget. It goes to the state and they break it out that way. So that's the cost side of it. It's much less than what was described in the article. As far as the school students themselves, the number of them, we have seen as new development has occurred throughout North Jersey, that it is not school families with school-age children that are the majority of the people moving into these units. You see a lot of young people, you see a lot of older people, you see a lot of divorced couples, and you see a lot of children that are still in town at another house, and one parent is moving into this house. There's a lot of scenarios that are out there. And it's not just children, it's public school children. So you have to be of age to go to school and you have to be going to a public school. So as many students as you might think that are there, some are not going to be school age and some are not going to go to your district school system. So we've done the best we can with regards to what we feel, and we feel comfortable with the numbers that we've projected. And almost every project we have seen in North Jersey has come in lower than what the projections have been. That's just a fact, and it's just kind of the way new development has been seen. So those are some of the school stuff that I wanted to bring up, and Dan can get into some more specifics of it. And if there are more specific questions, we can go through that. But I think I'll just leave it at that.
And in your analysis, there was 6 to 10, that was the number.
I think it was 6, right?
5.
Five, sorry, thank you, yeah. So 5. And remember, and I know it's laughable, I know, I know, it is, but if you look at reality in a lot of these buildings, you'll see that the ratios are that low. It's amazing. Now, if you had affordable units are a much higher percentage, and you see a lot more kids coming out of affordable units than you do out of market rate units. It's just the way that it is. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll answer any questions that you might have. If you want to get into any more specifics of the financials, we can do that. You want us to rerun through some of the benefits of the financial agreement that we negotiated, we could do that as well. I'll leave it up to the council.
Yeah, I think he did one more test. Was there one more person?
Well, Dan was going to just reiterate some of that, just to add to it, it's not a linear analysis more population, more school students, higher budget. It's just not the way it is. In fact, in Bernards, your budget itself. In the last 10 years, your enrollment has come down, I think, 3%, but your budget went up 20%, $10 million with, X number 100 less students. So it's not, you can't look at it like that. It's just not the way it works. I mean, you add more students. In fact, the truth of the matter is you don't get a lot of state aid in this district. The more students you have, the more state aid you get. So it's not analysis where it's, one more student is $21,000. And quite frankly, in fact, this analysis, this argument comes up a lot, and I hate to use this, but I'll just take myself, for example, in my town. I have 3 children. All 3 of them go to school in town. At $20,000 a student, that's 60 grand, and I pay $8,000 in taxes. So, I mean, every family that has children that go to your school district, I will be sure that 90% of them do not pay the same amount that it costs to educate your child, because that's just not the way it works. You have commercial, you have elderly, you have lots of families with no children, and they are there to help support the school system. So it's not just a one-to-one. The key to this, in our opinion, is do you have a project that is going to bring in significant revenues to the municipality versus what you have today? And if that shows to be a favorable decision, then I think that's the way it goes. And I think we did also look, I know the article asked about residents. I think there are 60, how many units? 68. And I think we looked at the analysis. We didn't present it because it didn't seem to be of importance at the time, but it's about 160 new residents based upon the ratios that studies use. And then you look at how much of that goes towards your municipal budget. And the state has a study that they have done. The state has something called the PFAF, which is a pilot model that does line item by line item, how much of the municipal budget typically is affected by a new resident. And if you ask every administrator that we've been dealing with, it's much lower than what even the state study has. So it's approximately, we came up with about $200 to $230 per new resident that moves in here each time someone moves in. But it's things like, it is roads and other stuff, but for the most part, it's salaries and benefits. It is debt service. If you look at your municipal budget, things that don't change when a new person moves into town. On the schools, it would be a much different example if we were, projecting a building that was going to require us to build a new school. If your enrollment was jam-packed and this was going to be the tipping scales for a new wing or then yes, that's a different analysis. But as you see, enrollment is down significantly. There is room within the school system as it is currently built. So it's just an incremental cost per student, which is much lower than what was described in that.
Thank you.
Sure. And we'll answer more questions if there are.
Maybe what we'll do is we'll let people talk, and then maybe at the end, you can address anything that has come up during the comments. And just again, for the public hearing, this is the time for you to comment. It is not a Q&A session. We're not going to debate back and forth, but please feel free to come up and share your thoughts. Stand on that silver X over there and give us your name and address. So who would like to go first?
Bob Graham, 11 Garden Road, Bernardsville, 84-3 Garden Road. None of my children lived with me. 4 of them grew up when I was in Upper Montclair and paid all those taxes. I don't want to pay school taxes. But everyone else living in Bernardsville, like everyone else, I do pay those taxes. Everybody else. The community pays for schools. As was just stated. Because educating children is important for the community. Is the developers. Is this development going to be filled with residents and commercial establishments that are not part of our community? The revised mix of units, since it's increased now, means that there will be a significant number of students. The professional consultants, I believe, are uninformed and naive at best. This is not a senior development with a no children mandate and a noble purpose of reducing costs for seniors and the families that may be supporting them. This application is unique in Bernardsville and Somerset County. It's unique. There is nothing like this application. Community principles and standards must be upheld. They're asking for a 33% relief in property taxes. That's $200,000 a year. That is not enough to deter this developer from developing this property. I think the fundamental decision also stated here that it would stop them from developing. That does not hold water. It's $200,000 deductible. These apartments are $500,000 each. And that's what lends itself to, well, who could afford to live in these? And what are the people that will afford to live in? Are they going to be dinks? Are they going to be seniors downsizing and so forth? So there's some credibility that childbearing couples might not be able to afford it. However, I do have one idea for you. If the proponents of this development are electing to not be part of the community, then of course the landlords, they need to pay for the Somerset Hills School District tuition minus the state's contribution. For every student attending the borough schools, if there is going to be a school tax abatement.
Thank you, Bob. Yes. Yeah, okay, that's the boy. You first.
Hello,
Hello. We hear you.
thank you.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you could tell me what percentage of these apartments will be allocated for low-income housing?
None of them will. They're all market rate.
Okay, I thought it was 20 and above in the state of New Jersey, 25% had to be allocated.
What they're doing is making a payment into our affordable housing fund. 15%. Right? 15%.
15% rental units, and they're making $1 million contribution.
Yeah, they're making a $1 million contribution into the fund.
Is that money allocated for the state or is that money allocated for Bernardsville Borough?
It's for the municipality, so that for future assessments, we'll have funding to build those apartments.
So they're just paying a COA fee in lieu of renting it out to low income.
Yeah, well, right next door, there will be a affordable housing unit.
And how many units will be there?
Well, I'm down here as well. But then we also have seniors, which is 47.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, how many is for low income housing?
Yeah, this is all available on our website. I mean, if there's something you want to say, this is not really a question and answer session. It's for you to make a statement.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Barry?
Hi, Rosalie Valentine, 19 Pheasant. I have notes here because this stuff stresses me out terribly. Okay, So first of all, I'm in complete support of downtown renovation, revitalization. But it must be appropriate in character, in harmony with its surroundings, as well as with our master plan. I've lived here since 1 year old, and I'm not gonna tell you the total that is. But I bet you can't remember, and I can, the post office and Betty's across from Diamond Dream now. The post office used to be across from Diamond Dream and Gianetti's department store. So anyway, I go back a long way, so a little old fashioned here. Anyway, the Palmer project seems to me to have appeared suddenly out of the blue. Like I wondered where had I been? There had been no public discussion, input, as far as I was aware. And it was it's an issue that is of such vital importance to our community right now. We just need to get things going here, but in the right, smart way. The developer's first presentation to our community, I forget when that was, maybe last summer. He mentioned, he showed a lot of slides and a lot of elevations, etc. And he showed a couple of slides of Darien, Connecticut. The idea was that this would be in that vein, so to speak. Well, that was kind of shocking to me because although Darien, I know, is a delightful, charming community, but it's a community of about 22,000 people, and it has a very different ambiance and atmosphere. We're a small, rural, laid-back community that needs desperately to renovate wisely and get things going. Now, all of a sudden, in this project, sorry guys, we have this request for a huge taxpayer subsidy. Now, or I guess the request came in September, I'm not sure. And I don't understand why, after all these months and discussions and elevations and everything, why we now are dealing with this as of September. Why are we learning about it now? The development category that council granted to the Palmer project is one that's generally and previously used for blighted areas in need of development. I mean, come on. It feels like a sham to me. I can't tell you, it just feels like a sham. It feels like a series of closed sessions with secret balloting, the whole project. Okay, anyway, I'm very much against granting the subsidy, the 30-year tax subsidy. And I would say all the other stuff that wasn't in line with the information here, but I do think it would be a very heavy burden on our schools if we do get 25 new students and they're not financed. So if the pupils' cost is not financed, as I believe, according to things I read, who's going to pay it? You and me, guys. Yeah. No.
Hi, my name is Pat Duncan. I live on Brook Lane in Bernardsville, New Jersey for the last 35 years. And I spoke last time and I thought I had done my due diligence because I looked at the tax records, and according to my figures, the Palmer property was generating about $77,000 in tax revenue. Today, I went back to the tax duplicate, and it's now down to $67,000 that they're being taxed at. I don't know where that $10,000 disappeared, but it concerns me that that property was somehow two parcels were combined, whatever. But somehow the town lost $10,000 in taxes in the last 2 weeks. And so I'm concerned about accountability. And as I said last time, I'm concerned that all of their figures are off. That number, that basic number is off. How can we trust all the other projections? As I said, I also am opposed to this tax exemption. I don't see any reason for it. And I think that the town has taken other properties off the tax roll, such as the Audi dealership, and has had other development projects that have not come to completion or even appear to be off the ground, such as Quimby Lane, etc. So I think that the town should proceed with more caution before they start giving away taxpayers' dollars. I've been paying taxes for 35 years. I've never had children in the school system. I live on a private road, so I pay extra for that. And I don't, so I get police and roads from this town. And my house has been overassessed for many years. So I don't think the town is being responsible. And also, according to my math, that was just said, with 68 or 69 units, they project 160 new residents in the town. Well, that comes out to 2.35 per unit. Well, in a majority of families, there's 2 adults and 1 child, or 1 adult and 2 children. And so I think their projection on school-age children is abysmally low. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone, I sort of very good.
Hi, Carrie Hazelton, 397 Minebrook Road. Well, today is the day that the council considers the final piece in the puzzle regarding the development of the most visible and important tract in Bernardsville, the 1-acre pond property. We've been told over and over again that a designation of an area in need of redevelopment would grant the borough more say in what is built on such a lot. I would state that we are getting no input at all. The 4-story building does not fit in our zoning, yet the designation gives Advance free rein to jam apartments into this acre. And we have lost retail space in an area where we said we wanted to revitalize retail. Do we really think the Palmer building will be more successful as a retail spot without parking? Today, I merely mentioned the absurdity of NW Financial's estimate that 5 school children will reside in a 68-unit apartment building. Enough said. I ask, how was the determination made that Advance should receive a 30-year pilot for this development, the maximum term? 30 years is a very long time. That's how long I've lived here. I should think that the maximum tax relief was intended for places that are incredibly unattractive to developers, either depressed urban areas or places so rural that they lack the population to support even basic amenities, places which are risky for developers. Bernardsville is one of the most sought after places to live in the state and perhaps the country. Does Advance really deserve and need such a huge dispensation from our amazingly successful borough and its residents? I say none. Additionally, granting this money-losing pilot sets a precedent for our other areas in need of redevelopment, and we all know there are quite a few, and there could be more granted later. If they all ask for pilots, how will the council say no? And what will happen to my taxes? If taxes on homeowners rise, well, there goes the desirability, there goes the neighborhood, there goes the real estate values, and the risk is ours, not the developers. I commend the council on its approach thus far with affordable housing. We've been able to avoid builders' remedy projects, which can lead to overdevelopment. But we're losing out here on one of the few lots left within a half mile of the train station, thus meeting the affordable development parameters. I ask the council to vote down this pilot and require the developer to cover its own taxes, as I do mine and you do yours. Thanks.
Thank you, Carrie. Yeah.
Jeff Hanley, in football court. I actually changed what I was gonna say about half a dozen times while I was listening to everybody here, and I regret not going before Carrie because she stole my. But I do have a concern about the precedent being set. Let me just back up a second and say that what we've heard at last council meeting and this council meeting was a sales pitch. And what I wonder is, why are we taking their first offer? It's like buying a car. I mean, they're saying that they can't build this without this very favorable pilot. And I'm not against pilots. I said that last council meeting. I think pilots can be good when they're structured correctly. but they said they can't build it. Do you honestly believe that? How many times have we heard this before? The Board of Adjustment or the Planning Board, that things couldn't get done unless they were done exactly the way the planner, the builder wants it. And then lo and behold, when there's pushback, they're able to modify the plan and somehow miraculously is able to be affordable. I think the same thing is happening here. So I'd be really careful about giving a very favorable to the developer, very favorable deal that's less favorable to the community. And sets a precedent so that every single developer that comes after this, for all the things that need to be done, are gonna want the same thing.
Thank you, Jeff. Anybody else?
Hi, Kathleen Williams, 90 Round Top Road. I actually came here for a completely different topic. We can talk about when we get to number 11. But being a statistician and a numbers person and hearing the presentation, like you can change scale however you want. And as I'm looking to empty nest in the next year, to stay in Bernardsville, I could easily sell my 6-bedroom house and downsize to 1 or 2. So I agree with you, the net the 5 new in that facility probably could be true. But all of the empty nesters that are gonna downsize and wanna stay in the town, we're selling 4, 5, 6-bedroom homes, which would be a lot more than 5 net new students. So my challenge is it truly a net new, or is it just 5 students living in that building? 68 units, even 20 families are empty nesters, you have 60+ kids. So that would be my challenge with respect to net new versus just students living in the new apartments. That's it, thank you.
Anyone else? Wait, Rob, you had your turn.
Yeah, but it came up, somebody brought up co-op as a concern or consideration in this, and it is relevant. Their obligation is 8 units. You allowed them $1 million into your fund for over a $3 million obligation, co-obligation. They've already received, according to your negotiations, over $2 million worth of benefit. Sure, it might be spread out over 30 years, but once again, there's no way this absence of tax abatement or the FILO prevents them from developing this project. It's just such a small scale compared to the whole project.
Rich Steinberg?
Hello there. So since no questions can be asked yet, I guess I'll make statements that could. Can you hear me?
Your name and address, sir.
Your name and address.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, your name and address, sir.
Okay, Rich Steinberg, 16 through 22 Minebrook Road.
Thank you.
Bernardsville. And I guess I have just a couple of statements. Gentleman, a couple of comments ago made a very good point. The developers are selling this project, and so they're going to make it sound as rosy as possible. I don't believe the 5-student net increase by a long shot. And the things that I'm afraid of are the things that aren't being spoken about. No one is saying a word about the parking situation. No one is saying how it may impact the traffic around here, which at rush hour, it gets to be very difficult to navigate. The scale is very, very difficult to kind of even picture. Although some of the elevations show scale compared to the existing Palmer building, and it looks like this development is going to be about 1/3 taller than the cupola of the Palmer building. And I haven't really heard besides adding tax revenue or revenue to the town, exactly how this development is going to enhance the town. And these are my concerns. I would really like to have some of my questions answered more towards the end of the presentation, please.
Okay, thank you, Rich. One thing, we're having a hearing on this particular ordinance, not on the whole project, just on the tax part of it and the financial agreement. So.
Okay, well, I just wanted to throw this stuff out here. And,
Yeah.
you know, I guess the answer to the question of why the pilot is needed, it's just simply boils down to return on investment. They wouldn't be making as much money as they want to in this scale of an investment without the benefit of the pilot. So I wish I had that benefit when I was buying my building, but I just don't. So not very fair in my mind.
Okay, thank you, Rich.
You're welcome.
Should come to the planning board meeting.
Yeah, I would say people that want to talk more about what the project in general, that will be heard, excuse me, when the site plan goes before the planning board. Right now, we're just the ordinance on the financial agreement and the tax exception. So, I saw somebody else.
We have Jay Wooding.
Jay Wooding?
Yeah, sorry. Let me pop online. If everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Jeff Wooding, Mount Harmony Road, Bernardsville. 136 if you need the number. I had a couple of questions on the pilot. So just as background, financial consultant, so I'm reasonably good with these numbers. And the conventional tax scenario, if you take their presentation from the 10th, they talk about operating income, they talk about, you know, a debt service coverage ratio. They've got the debt in there, they've got the equity, so you can kind of back into what their debt service is. So you take their operating income and then layer in the debt service. Under the conventional tax scenario, this thing is cash flow positive from the first year, the first stabilized year. So I guess my question would be, like, I get the ROI argument that they're making, but if it's cash flow positive from the first stabilized year, it only grows from there. Why would they need the pilot program? That's kind of my first point. The second point would be in the conventional taxes, it seems like over 30 years, you get about 25 million. That's on slide 11. And then slide 7 kind of gives you the breakout, right? Where the Board of Education gets 58% of that, 14 million. But in the pilot program on slide 10, it kind of implies that the county gets 17, the county gets 5%, which is less than $1 million, but the Board of Education gets nothing. Is that correct? So in that situation, I get the borough kind of cleans up here, right? It gets 17 million instead of 6.5, and we can argue about the fiscal impact in a minute, but aren't we robbing the county school board of $14 million over 30 years by doing this program? That's kind of point 2. And then under the agreement, this is the development agreement or redevelopment agreement. It talks about the partner or the redeveloper has to provide financial evidence so they can have the financial capability within 90 days of effective date, which would be November 27th. And then the Article 404 talks about the financial agreement, which is the pilot agreement, also has to be approved within 90 days, which is 11/27. That may be coincidental, but it seems like, wouldn't we ask them to provide their financial commitments and their financial capabilities before we provided the pilot program? We kind of get them to show their hand before you grant the pilot program. And then I guess on the last point on the development program, Article 303 seems to require only a $35,000 contribution for the neighborhood improvements. They're going to be the biggest tenant or biggest developer on that corner, I would have thought. I mean, is 35,000 sufficient, or is the borough going to end up carrying the bulk of that cost? And So that's kind of my main point. It just seems like this thing could service the debt under the conventional, and the county school board gets robbed of a ton of revenue if you go to the pilot program. I just think there's options under the agreements for the council to obtain certain financial documents and see their financing term sheet to see if there is something in there that prevents them getting finance under the conventional tax scenario. That's my 2 cents.
Thanks. Next in there.
Julie Ruth.
Hi there, how are you? Julie Ruth here. Turn on my camera if I can. There we go. Hello, I also live on Mount Harmony. I'm at 361 Mount Harmony Road in Bernardsville. I'm calling in to voice my opposition. I think that a lot of really valid points have been made by the prior members of our community speaking about this matter. And I think that what's really important here is that from my point of view, everybody that has stood up to voice their opinions and comments pay taxes. In this instance, we're asking for tax relief for a family. The developers, will they be paying the taxes? No, we're asking for a reprieve, but all of us will bear the cost of the children. The estimates, I believe, one of the gentlemen used the word laughable. If you even look at the stats of our neighboring town, Basking Ridge, there's about 7,000 families, families registered, and then about 4,000 of those have kids. How many are in the school district? I don't know. I didn't do my research that much, but it seems like 5 kids is a pretty big underestimation. And then, yes, I agree. There's nothing being spoken about parking, all of the other things that aren't on the agenda tonight. But eventually those will have to be addressed. And will that be more cost? And like, one of the speakers, Pat, said earlier, there are other properties in the community that also are now not paying taxes. So I think that we're setting a precedence here that, come into the community and, you don't have to pay taxes. And if you think about the amount of money that Pat mentioned, she went to the town and looked it up. And you think about the millions of dollars that this is going to cost. If you do the math, it's less than 1% of that overall cost. So you're telling me that a project this big would come to a screeching halt because of that small amount? That's what I find really hard to believe. I am really opposed to this situation. Thank you for the floor.
Thank you.
Evening, Aaron Duff, 51 Crestview Drive. I kind of feel like Dr. Jeff, a lot of things came up during the meeting that not really want to go back to my notes. I think that's the point, is that we've had very sounds to me like expert financial questions, a lot of concerns from the taxpayers that just haven't been answered. Sounded like NW wanted a chance to do that. You want to supplement the report, come back, show everybody how that school district budget breaks down, and say, well, these are kind of maybe there are block grants, maybe there are per pupil grants. Let's not rush into anything. You're talking about a potential 8-figure liability that we're just kind of saying, oh, okay, well, if they say so, there are experts. How about listen to your taxpayers, your constituents, and slowing down, looking at all the numbers, making an informed decision, as informed as you can possibly be. Mr. Jessup referenced some terms of the ground lease. Has anyone seen the ground lease? There's a line item in their cost estimate. They're about $4 million difference between their pilot and their conventional taxes. And there's a $4 million property acquisition fee in there. You don't know the terms of the property acquisition. So there's your 4 million right there. Or maybe it's not, maybe it is. I don't know. You don't know. Like the gentleman said, we don't have a crystal ball. You don't know how many kids are coming, but under conventional taxes, you have protection. The property owner will contribute to the increased taxes that his property generates. Under the pilot, we do. That's it. That's the only revenue you're getting to deal with that. And I feel like I've written a lot, I've said a lot, and I don't really have much more to add other than no point in rushing into anything right now. One quick point from the gentleman from the print shop, he actually ran off these prints for me. Advance has just submitted to the planning board their current plan for the development of this property. Materially unchanged from their old plan, but do that as an egg. Now it's current. Now they can't say it's not current anymore. I invite anyone on Zoom Lens to go check it out. Anyone here who wants to see it, I can give you copies. There are serious concerns. Every meeting I've been to has had concerns about the scale of this, the density, the traffic. And I know everyone say, well, wait for the planning board. The planning board is not a knight gonna ride in on a white horse with this project. The planning board can only enforce the rules that the council writes. And the zoning for this property was written specifically to accommodate this project. So the planning board is not gonna be able to hold their feet to the fire, push back on them. They might say too big, too much traffic, destruction of buildings, historic buildings, all these things is terrible, not enough parking. But you know what? They're not gonna be able to do anything about it. Because the council wrote the redevelopment plan to allow exactly this. So if you pass it, you're gonna own it.
Thank you. I thought you were gonna get somebody on Zoom. No. It's been a long time since I've been in here and now I have to stand on an X. To stand up there. Melanie Ditcher here. I live on 141 Brook Road, right across the street. There's a lot of very eloquent speakers that got up here and spoke. And I agree with everything that they said. I'm not going to go back and reiterate what they said. This is not a good thing for our town. Bernardsville has always been a charming town that everybody wants to come to. And then once they get here, they want to change it to the town that they used to live in, like Summit, Madison, Chatham, Morristown. We are not a Morristown. We will never be a Morristown. If you build it, they won't come. It's just an awful building. It's hideous. It looks nothing like our town. It's going to ruin our town. And the fact that the gentlemen behind me are saying that there's only going to be 5 students coming in. Come on, if they're getting it wrong about that, what else are they getting it wrong about? When they built Habitat for Humanity right next to me, each one of those people that came in had at least 2 or 3 kids, and those were for apartment low-income housing units. And now you're saying there's no low-income housing going in there? I thought that part of this building was supposed to be low-income housing to get us up on our quota that we have to do. You want to put something this big up, put it up on 202 right next to me where Dr. Sinatra's is. Don't ruin our town. It's horrible looking. And everybody in this town doesn't want it because of the traffic. And then you're going to have 60 units in here. What about our antiquated sewer system? How is that going to hold up with all these new people coming in? Have you thought of that? Have you thought about all the firemen that are volunteers that they can't even get volunteers to volunteer anymore? People don't even realize that we have a volunteer fire department. You're gonna have to start paying people to be firemen, and then our taxes go up for that. We just hired 2 new policemen. We're gonna have to hire more policemen with all these people coming into our town. And you do know, and I know, that in the past, when you say low-income housing and affordable housing, it's not affordable for Bernardsville residents. You're bringing people in from outside of our town. You're not giving it to the senior citizens
that need a place to live and can't afford to live here anymore. It's not going to our town people, it's going to people out of our town. And you're bringing other people into our town and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, what you were elected for, to protect the people in this town and keep our taxes down. Where is the transparency? When my husband was on the council, everybody screamed about transparency. I don't see any of that here.
Okay, just one thing on that, I mean, we don't get to decide who lives in those houses. That is not our decision, unfortunately. And we have a number of mayors who are trying to petition to be allowed to have our residents get first choice.
It's not right. It's not fair to
I
people
agree
that have
with you,
lived here.
and that unfortunately the municipality doesn't get to do that, but hopefully in the next round we might get some. Okay, let's see my hands.
Simon.
Simon Leland. Simon?
Yep, sorry, I'm just trying to start video. Sorry, I'm on. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Simon Leyland, 5 Wesley Avenue. So first we were told that the council was designating it as an area in need of redevelopment so that you could control the size of the development. We then later found that it's really used in the developer's favour to approve something that doesn't fit the zoning or the master plan. Next, we were told that the developer would go and build what they wanted anyway, including a 68-unit building. And now we're being told that isn't the case, and they can't build it with what they wanted without this tax break. It just seems like it's a setup from the start, whether it's the developer taking the council for the ride or the council taking the township for the ride, I don't know. In terms of the financial study, the wording used was assess if the developer could build it without the pilot, not whether it was good for the town or not. They're looking at half the story in terms of revenue. There's also costs there. I don't know a financial study that doesn't look at costs. And I think that's my main points. Most of the other things I agree with so far. Thank you.
That's Ricky from Borough Center. Yeah, the hand up.
I know you're getting this to take it down.
We're going to ask on you.
Rich, did you want to speak again?
What is that?
Wondering if I had any time left. There is one thing that I left out that I was reminded. I just want to make sure that the proposed rental costs that I think the pilot is being based on are not being taken 100%. For example, a 1-bedroom for $3,000 a month, 2-bedroom, it was like 4, with a den, it was 45, and a 3-bedroom, I think was in the 6,000 a month range. And if the pilot is based on full occupancy or almost full occupancy with those figures, what if it doesn't, what if they don't get those rents? And then, so your guaranteed pilot is going to start to lower. And that is just a big concern, because if the pilot is lower, then the tax benefits or the revenue benefit to the town is going to be lower. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. We don't have extra.
Jeff DeLeo, My Mount Road, ex-councilman, I was a 2-term councilman here. And I just wanted to mention to the council that your vote here is very important to this town, and you will be held accountable for your vote. I haven't been involved in this project at all. I've just come in last minute. And the way I look at this is a horrible project for our town. That corner where this building's going is a constant nightmare with traffic. is there a redesigned plan for that corner, turning lanes, whatever? Because if not, it's gonna be worse than a nightmare at that corner. And I don't like the idea of giving away our taxpayer dollars to a project that, in my eyes, doesn't benefit this town. It benefits the developer that's gonna be making money on this. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Jack. Anyone?
Don't you think on
Going forward?
Barbara Long, Lloyd Road. And I would like to say as well, everyone has spoken so eloquently and concerned Bernardsville citizens that I just endorse everything they say. 30 years, any realtor would tell you that talking to a developer, you can 30-year exempt and they would take that deal in a snap. It's insane.
Thank you. We'll close the public hearing on this ordinance. What comes to another?
Dave went in, but he's.
We
did, yeah, definitely.
There we go. Sorry, I did speak already. Just there's been a couple of questions about the costs, and I'm wondering if the council's considered that. Mayor, I know last week you're pretty, or 2 weeks ago, you're pretty adamant about the additional revenue that we brought in. So, I mean, on the cost side, they're talking about an increased population by like 2%, right? And I think if you take the borough's 23 budget, you had about $17.7 million of appropriations. And, if you strip out the debt service and the uncollected taxes, you've got variable costs of about 15.7. 2% on that, if that increases with population, is about $323,000 a year. And it seems to me that if you allow that, fiscal cost to go through against what the pilot programs are going to get, there's a real risk the town's actually underwater per year on this if you look at it on a cost basis. And that's before, any additional schooling costs. I just want to make sure that the council's thinking about the cost side of this as well, not just the additional revenue. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Again?
Just a couple of Carrie Casey from 397 Minebrook Road. Just a couple of quick points. Some folks have talked about lack of information and maybe that there's information out there that would be useful for the council. And I'm thinking about a development that has gone in recently in Bedminster in their historic town center, very close to the 206 Lamington Road intersection. 2 large buildings of apartments with some retail underneath. I don't know the answer, but that's a similar sort of building that went in. Is it full? How is it sold? What are the rates there? And maybe also important is, has the retail filled? I see the sign up. I don't see any indication that there's any retail going on there. Lastly, in my own mind, I feel like what we're getting for this as a community for this development is a wider sidewalk on one side. And I think we're paying too large a price for that. No public open space. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Okay, now we're going to close the public hearing. Yeah, really, we don't need to keep coming up and up and up.
I don't know how many seconds I've left. Have time again. Just that I think we look forward to our neighbors and see what happened after Fellowship Village went in. It was great that all the senior citizens had nice housing, but what happened, all those 4 and 5 bedroom homes were filled with school children. And Basking Ridge saw a huge jump. So if you have 69 houses sold in Bernardsville and they will have 4 or 5 bedrooms, that's a lot of kids. So thank you very much.
All right. I will close the public hearing at this point. Matt and Dan, do you want to add any response to anything that maybe people raise?
I think it's an important point. Matt and Dan are our people. So the town has hired them.
Not the
Not the
developer.
developer. So as we went through this process, I I think with Gene was a good one to say that we need to make sure that we have the right experts on our side. And I think everyone's noticed we actually changed attorneys during the process. We also brought in financial consultants, more experts to make sure that the borough is informed. So these folks here, they're speaking, they're paid by us, and when I say us, everybody in this room is a taxpayer. But this is, they're not representing the developer, they're representing us.
And also, I also wanted to add that, I think somebody said that we're taking the first offer. This contract has been in negotiation for quite some time. This was not their first offer.
And actually, the dealt to the first offer, my last offer is by municipal.
Yeah, 1.7 million actually, that the borough is making on top of what was originally requested because we hired out the financial firm.
Yeah, go ahead.
So just Dan Marinello again, just to respond to a few things. One of the gentlemen talked about the rents and what happens if rents go down. It's one of the things that the pilot agreement and the law creates is a partnership between the developer and the owner of the development and the municipality. So if the rents go up, your pilot payment goes up. So you want that project to be successful because your dollars will go up. If the rents go down and the pilot and the taxes stay the same, right? So now you have a situation where a developer puts significant amount of money, the rents don't come up to where they are expected to, but their tax payment is still at the tax payment that is set by the town. Now you have a failing. Now you have a failing project. And you look at a lot of cities across the state of New Jersey where that happened, and you see buildings that are left empty, abandoned by developers because they cannot afford the taxes based on the rents that are there. So if the taxes are based on the rents, then the developer is consistently in a place where they are making some revenue to be able to reinvest in that project. So you don't want to set a project up for failure, so you base it on the rents, and that's why the law was created that way. The developer came in and asked for 10% of gross revenues for 30 years. We went through that analysis with them. We negotiated back and forth with them and ended up in a place where it's 10%, 11%, 12%. I think someone mentioned it's approximately another 1.7, almost $1.8 million that the developer is going to be contributing versus what they wanted. So nothing was just given to them.
No.
It's up to you.
What?
So-
No, that's an important issue in our town. This is not a public hearing. This is a meeting. Open it back up. There's another opportunity. I need to have order.
I'm never seen.
This is how the meeting works. This is a
Then open the session again. This is an important thing for our town. Half the people here don't want it.
There's 12 people here instead of.
I'm not talking about just the people here. I'm talking about the hundreds of people that have.
These are our professionals. I don't want them to feel harassed. I'll let them finish what they're saying, and at the end, you can ask them questions. I'd like them to be able to finish their presentation.
I mean, the only thing I will add to that is one of the gentlemen mentioned, $200,000 difference between the conventional tax payment and the pilot negotiated here. That equates to some number over $4 million in value. So we say $200,000 doesn't make a bigger project, but $4 million does. And that's what $200,000 a year equates to in the value of this property. So it is an important piece to it. And you're asking a developer to invest almost $20 million of equity, right? So we're all having these comments about what can a developer afford and what they can't afford, but it's their $20 million, and they have a lot of options that they could do with $20 million. So what they want to make sure that they do is get a return on that investment that is valuable to them as an organization, and at the same time, the municipality can benefit as much as they can. So when you're asking someone to put in $20 million and then only asking them to take back a 4 or 5% return on that money, that's really not an investment that they want to make with their $20 million. But they want to capitalize as much as they can on this, and we want them to, because we want them to be successful while at the same time paying what we believe is a fair share of a pilot agreement to the town. And we did look at costs, so it may not have been in the presentation, but it is in all of our analyses. And we look at costs for government services, whether it's public safety, roads, and all of that, with the new residents that will be coming in and the school students. And we still feel, and it is our expert opinion based on what we have seen. And I've been doing this for a long time. I've been at NW Financial since it started in 1997. It is a valuable tool that we have as municipalities to help bring in development to our town. And if you don't have that opportunity, then developers may or may not choose to come here, but that's a risk you take. And so someone talked about taxpayer dollars and stuff. I mentioned it before, $70,000 or whatever the number may specifically be. I think it's $68,000 versus $400,000. You know, that is the benefit that the taxpayers of Bernardsville are getting. Whether it's your school tax or your municipal tax, it's dollars that you pay to run this municipality that are now going to be offset by the tune of $340,000, whatever the number ends up being. So to me, the benefit is still there. I recognize all of your concerns, but I think that we feel comfortable that we've looked at all of this. We've negotiated back and forth the best that we feel that we can do. It's a tight project. And although everyone looks at the revenues and the rents as an enormous benefit to the developer, the truth is costs are incredibly high right now. Interest rates are incredibly high right now, and the net is very low. So you have to figure out a way, how do you balance encouraging development to come in and still asking them to pay their share of the pilot? And it comes down just as it is, it's numbers, it's an equation. And I feel comfortable that we came up here and ended up with a strong proposal. So.
Matt, do you want to go on?
Good evening, Dan Banker. I just want to respond to a few of the questions that came up. Parking, I just want to make it clear that there are 139 spaces planned, of which 102 will be dedicated to the residential and 37 dedicated to the commercial. Also, it got brought up about potentially 4 and 5 bedroom units. I just want to make it clear that the unit mix is 68 units, of which there's 12 1 bedrooms, 47 2 bedrooms, and 9 3 bedrooms. In terms of the rent assumptions, the developer is actually expecting the rents to be 5% higher. We adjusted those rents down just to be more conservative. And lastly, there was a comment about the positive cash flow. And I know not everyone has this document in front of them right now, but the presentation that we gave at the last council meeting had a page that showed the developer's returns under conventional taxes. As we stated, we don't consider a pilot if the project is financially feasible under conventional taxes. So in this case, we spoke to the tax assessor to get an estimated conventional tax number, which came out to $625,000. As mentioned by the gentleman on the Zoom call, there is a positive net operating income of $2.8 million, but that doesn't account for the debt service. So this project is estimated to cost about $53 million, of which 65% will be debt. That's about $34 million. Right now, our analysis assumes an interest rate of 6.5%. Right now, interest rates are well above 7%. So we are also probably low on that number. And with that being said, the positive cash flow that you'll see is $169,000. That sounds like it is a positive number. However, banks don't care about it being positive. They need to show that a developer is capable of making a debt service payment every year. In order to do that, that coverage ratio needs to be 1.2. They need to have 120% of the debt service amount every year available to pay off that debt service. So in that case, the debt service coverage ratio is 1.06. So they would be unlikely to receive permanent financing at that amount. They would have to invest more equity, reducing their returns. And there's a certain point where a developer, it's not worth it for a developer to invest $20 million for minimal returns. So in that case, That is why, although there's a positive cash flow, this project doesn't work under conventional taxes.
And Matt?
So just a couple items. I know I tried to take literally almost everything everyone said, and a lot of it really relates to the redevelopment plan and the project, right? And the decisions that were made 7 months ago and over a year ago, when you first declared the property an area of redevelopment, when you set the zoning, when you had multiple hearings both before this governing body and the planning board in connection with that process. The 139 parking spaces, the number of units, the fact that the redevelopment plan concludes that the project promotes and implements the goals of the master plan and is consistent with the master plan, right? All of that process has already been undertaken. And again, multiple public meetings where that process happened. With respect to the pilot, there was a comment about why the pilot now. I just want to, I know I mentioned this once before. Our redevelopment agreement, which was signed in August, and I think somebody actually read from it, either in the room or on Zoom, that contained a provision that contemplated this was coming. That, of course, had been negotiated for months in advance. So it is not this slow drip of the developer after asking for one thing, asking for something else, right? This is the way statutorily the process unfolds. An area, a plan, an agreement, a pilot, etc. But it's not the way it was presented to the borough in this sort of slow drip process. It was sort of all upfront. Precedent being set with respect to other projects. I think it's really important to note that the analysis that NW has walked you through, first determining whether or not the project could be built under conventional taxes, that's an analysis that you'll have to go through for every project. And there are projects where the pilot does not make sense. There are projects where the pilot would end up being an amount that is higher than conventional taxes, right? So you can afford the pilot, you can afford the conventional taxes. And as much as most municipalities would prefer the pilot because of the revenue benefits that the municipality receives that these guys have talked about for the last meeting of this one, you just can't do that, right? That's just the reality of it. So I think it's important that certain developers are going to request a pilot. That doesn't mean because Advance gets one here that the next developer gets one. They have to go through the same due diligence. They have to go through the same math. They have to go through the same scrubbing of operating expenses, construction numbers, rent numbers, all of those land acquisition costs, all of those items. Each developer has to go through that. Not every conclusion will be the same. Not every developer may get a pilot. Not every developer may get one at 11, 12, and 13%. Some may need a higher one, some may need a lesser one. Really, every project is a unique issue. I think, Mayor, you mentioned earlier, we certainly did not take the first offer. We spent a lot of time negotiating with the developer, and I think it was about $1.7+ million that we inured to the benefit of the municipality through our negotiations with them. I think Dan commented earlier, there were some comments about the return on equity on investment for the pilot, and W's report addresses that. The cash flow positive comment also in the report. I think someone here tried to clarify it, but a pilot is paid, each pilot dollar, 95 cents goes to the municipality, 5 cents goes to the county, just to be clear on that. The $4 million property acquisition cost, we know that is the cost. We have seen the ground lease. We have seen the ground lease. We have provided our advice to you through these documents, through these presentations, based on our examination of the ground lease. And we are completely comfortable in the terms that I talked to you about earlier tonight with respect to the term, the sale, the ultimate purchase by the developer, and the ultimate cost that is the correct representation of the redeveloper's cost for the land, because your professionals have seen the lease.
Is that a public document? Or is
It's not a public document in the sense that it is not a document that we are a party to, right? So a document that you are a party to is a public document. It is subject to Oprah, et cetera. We are not a party to that ground lease agreement. It is an agreement between two private parties, a private resident, you know, who I know is well known here in town and for understandable reasons may or may not want the terms of his business deal disclosed, and a developer who also is negotiating with a landowner and negotiating with other landowners elsewhere. And like any of us who were running a business like that, we may not want to, tip our hand to everyone else. But it's critically important that we see it, right? And that we understand those terms for your benefit, for your protection, for your security.
That was one of the things that you said before, I just want to reiterate. We see their audited financials. So there's no sweeping of revenue or under the rug. They're responsible to the borough as part of the pilot to provide you.
And the state of New Jersey, more importantly, they're required to file their audit with both the Department of Community Affairs, which is one of the major departments within the state, and with the municipal clerk. So you will get a copy of the audit every year with 90 days of the close of the fiscal year, and the state of New Jersey, DCA gets a copy of it as well.
I thought it was going to you as the attorney. I didn't know.
It is, I mean, if you send me a copy, send them a copy, right? We talked earlier about the administrative fee and some of the reasons why that fee is an important additional component to the borough, above and beyond the pilot. And that's because, we want to check those things, right? We want to make sure that those audits are accurately reflecting the pilot revenue to the municipality. They're going to pay based on effectively an assumed amount of revenue, right? If, as Dan mentioned earlier, rents end up being 5% higher, they're going to owe more money, right? As additional pilot payments, basically retroactive from the prior year. So those are important computations that the borough will undertake to make sure that we're collecting every pilot one. And that you get great use of that administrative fee. And I don't think I have anything else on the pilot, specifically as the action item before you tonight.
All right, thank you. Are you willing to answer questions from the audience?
Sure.
Okay. Yes, gentleman in the back.
So I'm Ken Mail, 26 Meadow Drive, Bernardsville. I think you said something really interesting. You said you can't expect the developer to invest. I don't expect the developer to invest. The owner of the property expects the developer to invest. And you're asking us to actually compensate the owner of the property. They can lower the cost of the value of $4 million. It's obviously not worth $4 million without the concession that we're going to give. We have to change the density, we have to change the way they develop. Now we're asking for factory. It was only $1 million, maybe the developer can make money. But I have no idea why I'm being asked to pay for somebody else's property.
No need to respond to that. Small.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that, I didn't know. Go ahead. I didn't know the question. It was, so.
I'll explain it again.
Go ahead. So you just asked a question.
Okay.
I got the explanation.
So I heard that the property was leased for $4 million, although I think we were told by a councilman going on that it was actually purchased. That's not the case. It's a $4 million. The developer actually decided to spend $4 million based on certain assumptions. Now those assumptions aren't working out for them, and they're asking us, rather than going back to the property and say, I'm not paying $4 million for the property because I didn't make any money with it. I'll only pay $2 million or $1 million. They're coming to the town to be a taxpayer and say, you fund my development. I'm not really interested in doing that. So why should they not go back to the property and renegotiate with the property? Why are they coming to the town?
I'll that was a councilman, but actually the tax credit now. And actually, as a councilman that came in here with the primary purpose to improve the fiscal situation in the borough. I've been here for 4 years. I've been the chair of the finance committee. Initially, I completely tied this borough down to the ground when I came here. I struck all spending that was discretionary. I took away all spending that was related to anything that was not a priority of the town. We reduced fiscal budget by a lot. We didn't pay our employees, we didn't increase their pay. This, if we go forward with the pilot, increases the revenue of the borough by $16.2 million. So when we do tax calculations every year, we look at our borough budget. If the borough budget is $16.5 million, we have to raise $16.5 million of the revenue. This particular circumstance increases the revenue of a borough by about 5%. That's 5% that I don't have to raise in taxes, tax rate, and everything else as a citizen here, right? Because last year we kept our tax rate, I think it went down by a fraction. But the total amount raised by taxes went up. So the goal, my goal, and I'll only speak for me, is number one, we have a huge debt service that expires in 2032. To bridge the gap to 2032. Improving the bottom line expenses in the borough. And then number three, which is the harder part, when only about 5% of our borough taxes are paid by businesses. They're entirely footed by the residents of this borough. We're increasing the revenue for this borough by $16.2 million. As a businessman, that's something that I take very seriously. Actually, in one night, I think we can improve top and bottom line revenue for this borough for the next 30 years. That means I don't have to raise taxes.
But this isn't the business. This is the town. Sure. You know, it's not, I thought in the school board, I was on finance committee, I think it was bogus, but there's a lot more that goes into decisions than just numbers. Look how the outing goes. So we're told, okay, we're gonna do a deal where we're just guaranteeing someone else to purchase. Next thing you know, we own the building and we're stuck with all the problems. So projections don't always work out the way they are. It's a big risk to take to say, oh, $2 million, and we'll change the whole health.
So I would say this risk is less, and then I'll let somebody else speak. You know, for example, I'll give a relevant example. The entirety of the Quimby Block District contributes about $40,000 a year in tax to the borough. That's about the median property tax to 2 homes in this town. That has to be fixed. Look, if I'm here on council, part of the way that I will fix that is through a pilot when we ultimately get to that block. Because it helps solve every taxpayer's problem, in my opinion. And I'm somebody that spends a lot of times in our borough, just like I'm sure you do with the school district, if you're part of the school finance. You know how hard it is every year when you have a capitated amount of increase by taxes. And your revenues don't necessarily go up. This has an opportunity to make our revenues go up.
Eric, you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question for Tad. I understand that we're getting not a lot of revenue out of our commercial district. How much are our expenses on our commercial district relative to our residential taxpayers with the children in the schools and the roads that are far flung that need to be plowed and the police presence that needs to be there? I think that the costs are much higher with the residents than it is. So we're not losing as much by having less business taxes come in then you know, it's not really the same. That revenue, once we put residential properties on that commercial land that's not generating much revenue right now, we're gonna have expenses related to those people as well. So I think it needs to be taken into account.
Sure, I look, we don't do a calculation of percentage where it comes to, you know, by block and house.
One thing I was gonna add to that, Mayor, was I think the $4 million number, if you attribute that to what they're getting for that, it's about 60,000 a unit. Actually, a little bit less than you commercial to it. We felt pretty comfortable that that was not an egregious amount to be purchasing the property for. If we wanted to ask for more, that's a deal between the developer and the homeowner that they have.
But it wasn't 68 units when we did that deal.
It was higher. They were gonna put more units.
Well, but they had no right.
They should, they do.
Can't get 78 units, 3 stories, with setbacks, with adequate RSIS parking. You cannot do it under your underlying zone. Don't pretend you could.
Right, change the zoning to allow that.
The zoning is.
Specifically encourage projects. I would like to be able to sell my house. I would like to be able to sell my house for more money than it's worth. If I get a tax break, I don't. But if my taxes get cut in half, or by 30%, my property value goes up. So why can't I have that? Everybody here, I'm sure, would like to have that. My property value goes up. This is really just a deal for the commons. We're not sticking to it again, but they're getting a better value. They're going to try to be paying for the cost of the reduction in taxes.
I just want to, this is a redevelopment project, right? So let's remember what we've already determined about the area, about its need for assistance, about its need to be developed.
That's redetermined.
It's already been done.
It's done.
So that's a critical component of this, right? This is not my house that I want to sell for more money. This is what the governing body, the planning board's assistants has determined is an area that needs the benefit and the tools of the redevelopment the redevelopment law in order to further.
Excuse me. Please, Aaron.
I'm sorry. This is a property that you, in your role, as you've been designated by the legislature to do, have determined is a property or an area that needs the benefit of the redevelopment law in order to turn it into a property that is consistent and promotes your master plan, which you've also adopted. That decision has already been made. It involved multiple governing bodies and multiple public meetings. And as a result, these are some of those tools that are critical to allow for successful redevelopment. If we don't employ these tools, the property sits as it stands today.
Thank you. Okay. Done.
Are we gonna, I really like to go like issue by issue and kind of debate them and discuss them as council. So, whether it's right now, or if you need to do it first, right? Like, there's obviously a lot of concerns. I think we just kind of need to discuss that.
Okay, let's move it first. Al, why don't you move it?
Sure. I move to pass ordinance 2023-1983 on the final reading and adopt as published. Sorry.
Okay, council discussion.
So, like, here's the issue that I heard, and then, like, whether we go at it one at a time, I'm open to how we talk about it. School funding is one, right? Does the pilot benefit the developer versus the community? Whether this was rushed, whether this was done in secret. The 30-year pilot, why the 30-year pilot versus say 15 or 10 or any other number there. And then it's not exactly financial, but you know, I would be open to making comments on community impact or parking, traffic, sewers, areas like that. So I don't know if it's that list or however people want to do it, but I'll go one at a time. So like, yeah, let's start on schools, right? And have a debate around schools. So here are the facts I got. The school year, so this is the school, something like school district enrollment, and the taxes levied by the school district, not the budget, the actual taxes levied. In 2020 to 21 school district, school year, it was 1,816 students. The taxes levied were 32.6 million. 2021, 2022, it went down to 1,776. Taxes levied were 33.2, went up. Went down the next year to 1,757. Taxes went up to 13.9 million. And then if the estimated was that it was going to be flat, some people said that it dropped. I'm not really sure, but this year, whether it's flat or up or went down, taxes are 34.6 million levy. So like to me, as I'm reading this and looking at the facts, it's completely uncorrelated. The amount of students that are actually in the school district is completely uncorrelated from the taxes that are being levied by the school district to us. And to me, also, whether the number is 5 students, 10 students, 20 students, 40 students, 50 students, it's clearly capacity here inside the school district to be able to absorb more students. I mean, that's 70 students right there. And so, frankly, like maybe if we were able to, the taxes were actually lower when we had 70 more students or some estimate there inside the school district. So that's one aspect of it. And second, like I've heard criticism around taxes being funneled outside of the school district or that the school district wouldn't receive, and that's a misunderstanding of how it's done, as we've heard. Palmer property pays $38,860 right now towards the school. That's the amount of money that would be coming out of the school district, $38,860. And that's going to be absorbed now between the 3 boroughs that are part of the Somerset Hills School District without a doubt. So now, what the school district could do and could have done, and I think that this is sort of a challenge to council, is the valuation of this property would increase the overall valuation of the town. And so when they went to actually do the assessment that I just described, taxes levied by the school district, they could have reduced all of our taxes levied of basically our tax rate as a borough across the board, just like this council reduced the taxes, the tax rate this year. And so maybe the challenge is the future councils that we should commit that a portion of this will go to offset taxes in the borough, which I'm totally good with. I also like Mr. Graham's suggestion around, you know, some calculation that used to like tuition that would actually go. Like, I think that might be a smart mechanism that councils can use and say, you know, if we're above a certain number, whatever the number was, 5, 6, 7, 10, 20, whatever, that is going to be a potential offset, with all the tax revenue that will come in, so.
I just stop you there, but that's not the way that the school does their budget. They say their
Not the
budget's
school,
pretty high.
no, sorry, I'm saying the borough, we can offset. We can use the funds to offset our municipal tax.
That's exactly what we're trying to do. But the borough, if the school board says, Matt, we cannot influence the school board's budget, one of my big issues, and I don't speak about this publicly because I'm on council, is school district financing and the way that they're spending money. If the school district said they're gonna spend $35 million, they collect $35 million in tax.
Right. I think the key there that Al was getting at is that if we're taking in $400,000 in additional revenue to resolve this, I think Chaz would this as well. The question is how you spend it.
How do you spend it?
You view this as a windfall of cash that you're going to go out, you're gonna buy new things and fund new initiatives on, then you're gonna run into issues when you start to have increased costs with the police department, with the sewer system. But if you're using that money to reinvest back into the borough, you should be able to actually reduce the tax burden on the rest. It's just a matter of fiscal discipline.
And it's something that this council spent a lot of time thinking about. I mean, it's a lot of the same people that have been in front of this council saying, look, I want a sidewalk in this road. And I've said, we do not have the funding for sidewalks in said road. I want to pave X road. I want to do X, Y, and Z. The library took a huge budget cut last year because we couldn't fund the library. We now have an additional funding there. Now, somebody says you're held accountable to your votes. Absolutely, because the future councils that you put here will decide how that revenue is being spent.
Stay on schools, I mean, I just might disagree, I don't know.
I think you hit on a key point, which is that it's a regional district. And one of the other towns has a development with a pilot.
Yeah.
And I believe they are not giving the school district extra money. I could be wrong, but it's a choice that we could make. But keep in mind, you know, it's not just us, not Bernardsville, the only town in that school district. So if we're gonna do it, then maybe we should set the expectation that the other towns, when they get their pilots, they should do it.
But we cannot control the school
Yeah,
board.
well, yeah, I mean, we're talking about the school district budget, but they have a sending a cost per pupil that goes to those. District. That goes to our bills, yeah, I think that's not, sending is gonna be big, the others, the principal, they all. Everyone, so when the school district has the budget, it's funded from the other towns. Right. So the town, in the school. They pay a certain percentage based on the number of kids that drive.
Only
Bedminster is, the others are a rate bracket. Well, there's a part of the calculation of the tax. In other words, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Yes.
Right, so it's based on the assessed value of each community,
town,
total
yeah.
assessed value of each community,
Yeah.
except for it sounds like the one that's ascending.
Bedminster.
Bedminster, so if you take the other towns, we have a total assessed value of, $350 million, and the town next to us has $700 million. They pay twice what we pay. So it's allocated based on the assessed value. Properties that are subject to a financial agreement are removed from it, so your liability actually goes there.
Even better.
Yeah.
So it means that the other districts will pay more. Correct. Something that's been above.
Right, it changes the balance. Thank you. You learned about school.
The next issue I heard was pilot development and developer versus community as a whole. I started this one.
No, go ahead. I heard.
Yeah, this is the pilot benefiting the developer specifically versus the community as a whole. Is like, basically that this is a tax holiday for the developer that.
So I'll just look, I've been through 4 budget cycles in finance committee. This year, we started the budget cycle with a necessary 12% decrease in taxes. To the borough, that's where we started. 12%. When we looked at our fixed cost, we looked at what the library wanted and what everybody thought they needed to operate the borough, we were looking at a 12% increase in tax. We were able to get it down to our target of 3%. And how painful was it? Right. It was painful, right? I didn't even talk about that issue enough.
I mean, in this case, yes, I mean, they are getting a tax exemption, right? I think it's technically called, right? They're supposed to be paying under conventional analysis based on our tax assessor and what could be built there at 24.9 million. And from the pilot, we're supposed to be getting 17.4. Again, it's the way that the distribution is that nets the borough 16.2 million in revenue. And I think we've talked about the school issue already. So I personally have talked with people on the public safety committee, our chief, the public works departments, our fire and EMTs. And yes, we need volunteers always for fire and EMT. They're 100% volunteers. So please, if you know anyone, they have meetings every night, every Monday night at 7 p.m. Please go learn about it and volunteer your time. We need volunteers always. But they don't believe that there's going to be any impact from this particular development. Now, from an aggregated perspective, right, with all of the development that's on the table that's coming, Nancy did a great job in pulling together all of the different ones that are kind of in discussions right now to see what could happen. And we need to do an entire analysis on that. And we will, but we have to start, you know. And actually, yeah, I mentioned that we just hired a town planner to actually look at the entire downtown traffic, parking, and as a unit rather than project by project. That's our goal, is to have, as use your word, the global picture of the downtown and how each of these would impact it. So we are in that process.
And it's important, you know, look, because of, this has been a 6-year process. But this started 6 years ago, I think, maybe it was longer than that, Mayor.
This one's 2.
This one's 2.
Maybe
Well, the year before that was the planning board talking about all the zoning.
The totality of it's been going on for a long time. We have a developer that's looking to spend $50 million. And I can tell you 6 years ago, nobody was spending a cent.
I mean, like, I'm not really worried about the developer's interest. Of course, like, I want it to be win-win, right? Like, you want people to invest here in Bernardsville, but like, I want this, like, to me, this financial agreement protects firms. And like, and the focus on what the developer get just doesn't really land with me. To me, it's like, you run a business, and a lot of people in this audience run businesses, and someone comes to you and says, I want to sign a 30-year contract with you, 30 years of business, but I want a discount. And then like, all we do is focus on the discount and how bad the discount is, rather than realizing like we're basically have 30 years of revenue that starts at 400,000, continues to increase all the way up to potentially 800,000. We share in the upside of this project, which to me is like absolutely amazing. The fact that as this project is more successful, we actually recoup more for Bernardsville and Bernardsville residents. We made almost $18 million over the course of the life of this project, specifically for Bernardsville residents, that we can then lower taxes, invest in the library, invest in our roads, and complete our recreation plan, upgrade our infrastructure, kind of all these things we've been talking about as a community, but we haven't wanted to raise taxes on residents to be able to accomplish.
And that's the key point. We haven't raised resident taxes to accomplish. And there's going to become a point where we can only start with Brook so long. 2032 is a long ways away. The road bond and the debt service on the road bond is real. And my first year taking over the finance committee was the year that there was a $400,000 increase in our interest payments that we could not afford.
So I recommend for those that are interested in those running for council for the seats that are up this year, every year there's 2, grill them on their financials, because if you don't want your taxes increased, you need people on council that are going to understand the finances and care about them.
The 30-year mark, so I think people want to understand why 30 years is necessary versus 15 years.
Just to jump in real quick on that. We've seen various pilots over the years at different places. For the most part, the majority of them are for 30 years. The reason for that is you're asking a bank to lend this particular developer $35 million. And when you do that, you as a lender want to have some stability in their ability to pay. The one line item in the developer's expenses that they do not control is taxes. And so if you're a bank, you're a lender, and you're lending that kind of money to a development, you don't want to have that line item be various such that it could make or break, depending on politics, depending on other things that are happening near the town, why taxes go up versus what, something else has nothing to do with this particular project. So that line item for a lender, 35 million, is very important to have steady and to be able to know what that is going to be for the life of the loan that the developer is getting. It's a very important piece to the bank's investment in this property.
As a simple person, look, I work in the private sector, not in government. One of the main questions I've asked almost every year when I look at, because I'm part of the finance committee, I'll look at a lot in Quimby Lane and say, how is that lot only paying $2,500 in taxes? I mean, I as a resident pay almost $20. It sets the floor, which for me was critical in this negotiation. There is a floor. Quimby Lane pays $40,000 a year in taxes, that entire block. So that's the floor.
The reason I went 30 years is because I wanted to selfish regards. Like, so I don't know the financials behind if it was 10 or 15 years, but if we moved it to say 15 years, if it was financially subsidy to be able to do it, it would feel good, right? We'd stick it to a developer. We bop them in the nose and, it would we sort of took one from the big guy and did 15 years. But developers go and they make money, or go somewhere else and make money, or find some other way to make money, etc. But then 15 years from now, when my son's in high school, when he's an honor student like his mom, or a mediocre athlete like his dad, then it'll be Bernardsville residents that lose. It'll be them that actually loses the $400,000, $600,000, $800,000 that could have gone into the budget. And then you'll sort of be there 15 years from now. And you could have doubled basically the life of this entire project and stuck it and gone for 30 years and actually recouped. I think the difference between stopping at 15 years and going all the way was almost $10 million. It was like $9.85 million from that point. So the only reason that I understand, I get your point about the consistency and all, but personally, I just feel like it's Bernardsville residents that will lose. We don't maximize the value of this mechanism that's available to them.
Well said. Also about the sewer system, and somebody mentioned, we have more than enough capacity with the sewer system to.
We've checked all of our uses.
Yeah.
Not only for this project, but for the expansion that is
And
pending.
the affordable housing, yeah.
But I do think to Richard's point from the Bernardsville Prince Center, you do have to be concerned about community impact collectively between this and affordable housing and Quimby, et cetera. Be concerned about parking, be concerned about traffic. We're taking steps which now other members can speak to about hiring a planner and try to look at some of these aspects and plan for the entire community. I will say that, I've been in town 8 years, I've been on council for 2, I've been kind of involved for 3.5, 4. I haven't seen anything that you got built, right? And we have time, maybe we've been talking about for 4 years, this we've been talking about for 2 years, affordable housing, we've been talking about multiple years. If the council doesn't plan for the impact of these things on all the aspects that you brought up, absolutely, fault on us. But none on any of this stuff, ground is going to get broken. Ground is not going to get broken tomorrow. And we have to make sure we're taking time to actually plan for the things.
We are.
There's kind of a false analysis there that unintentionally should. If you had a 15-year project, the important point they're making, the 30-year commitment to the bank, so that's the important one. It doesn't go away after 15 years and your 15-year bylaw. You have taxes to replace it. And whatever the value
To be an offset.
So stick to their point.
But it would still be 95%.
About revenue to the town over the 30-year period, that the service charge.
In Bob, there's a subtlety, just simple math, right? In this circumstance, 100% of the revenue goes to the borough instead of just 25%. And that goes directly into the amount needed to be raised for taxes. When we get to the end of our budget cycle, there's a number, amount needed to be raised.
No,
for
I'm not
taxes.
arguing your point, I'm just saying that service charge doesn't go away, it's just replaced with assessed tax on the property at the end of it. But the important thing is for you.
The other two, we've addressed, I think, community impact. The other one was the comments around vacancy garage, what was done in secret or not transparent. Or the.
Yeah, I mean, we've been, yeah,
We're even talking about it.
we've been talking about it.
I applaud every one of you for coming to this and for being on there, because we want you as part of this process, but then to turn around and say, well, you haven't talked about it, we really have. And we're all acceptable, you know, we all have email and websites, and we try our best to make ourselves accessible, but this is a volunteer job for us too. So you have to keep in mind that, you know, we can't be having like
Christine, how long have you been on council?
4 meetings that twice a month. We already have our. You know, so for 6 years, we're talking about this, and one of the things I want to bring up about that is, you know, some of you are diehards and you've been here at these meetings when we get at certain times of the year or where there's like sports teams asking for facilities things. And I'm just gonna speak in general terms, but we've always heard, well, Chatham has this and Basking Ridge has that, and we're kind of, you know, put in a hard place by those types of things. And what I've been looking at is, yeah, we're not Morristown with their bar revenue, and we're not Chatham or Madison Madison has colleges and colleges, like, we're not exactly like any town. So for people to expect our facilities to meet a standard of any other town, you know, you have to be realistic. But something like this gives us at least an ability to do a capital project each year that's gonna benefit our parks, which we've all been very dedicated to getting the passive and active recreation, and we really wanna maintain that. So having this extra boost is really what, to me, makes this a very good idea.
I mean, the original zone, the change in zoning, was spent a year and a half at the planning board check.
Well, all of them talk about the original zoning. It was $100.
This is the 2020 zone?
Yeah, 2020 zone, we spent probably $100 in that. Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean,
But the truth remains, a tremendous number of people in Bernardsville are unaware.
Yes.
And it's a social construct or whatever. The reality is when they're made aware of it, they say, what the heck? How come I never knew anything about this sort of thing? And it goes to our publicity, you know, collectively in the council and the boards, that it's not getting to a lot of the people, and granted, this is a very special project and big and so forth, so they're surprised they missed it, but they did miss it. The reality is
They did.
they
That
missed
is true.
Can I say, it was introduced in April 2020. It was voted on in October 2020.
When you say it,
Your zoning from common ground, the proposal, everything that they're all working on was unveiled to the public. Couple months into the most dramatic.
There's drafts in 2019.
Zoom.
2 years before.
Yeah.
But no decision was made, nothing was unveiled, nothing was shared.
have some.
Just nothing yet. I mean, you want some, they're doing it well.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's different.
That's why people know this. That's why people know that.
Transparency.
There's problems with truth.
I'm just looking
There's problems with truth.
that we have a downtown that is essentially, in my eyes and in the eyes of many, an asset that we need to use to its full capacity. Maybe not full 100%, but we're losing out. We have property that could be used better. But it could be better than a parking lot that everybody uses to cut through. Or a parking lot that people treat as their own private parking lot when they go downtown. It's being wasted. We're getting nothing.
But at the end of the day, and this is important, right? It's a private transaction that is driving this. The private transaction has the ability to build on that lot. By doing this, we now have borough benefit. Now, some of you may question if the borough benefit is enough. That's fair. That's fair. I can say that as I thought about, negotiated, inquired, the diligence of this council has been incredible. Don't think that everyone on this council has not had their full diligence in this issue. The borough was getting something where they were getting.
I know there was someone on Zoom that has their hand up.
Yeah.
Jay, what is?
Well, all my, that's what I heard from the community, so thanks for indulging me to have the debate on this.
Anything else that you wanted to offer?
It makes some points when we go to vote.
Yeah, okay, just to add for the traffic and the parking, like, I just want to reiterate one more time. We did look into this, and like Chad said, we all have done a lot of due diligence. We are volunteers, we have full-time jobs, but we spent a lot of time on this. Months and months. And we've looked into the traffic and the parking, there were traffic studies done, yada, yada. Everything in its single siloed entity comes up with their own traffic study. Right, what we want to do as a town, we want to do something that's aggregated and global, I think, as Mary Kate and Chad said before. We need to look at everything in its entirety, because once you choose these can get approved, and then all of a sudden it all adds up, and then where are you? And so that's something that we want to engage in. The mayor said earlier, we hired a planner to help us do this. We have to hire experts. We have to trust our experts that we hire. And I'm very thankful that Mr. Jessup came in and suggested that we hire NW Financial to do this unbiased analysis, because our prior attorney was not advising us to do that. We thought we wouldn't get that much money from it. We thought we'd get tens of thousands of dollars. And instead, we found 1.7 million. That's a huge difference. And that's all because of our new attorney and NW Financial. So we are going to look at the traffic in its entirety and the parking as well.
I just read the report about that intersection there. So is there plans to widen it or put turning lane? Is that building on the corner being raised? Is that coming down?
The side.
The sides will come off that were add-ons years ago, so that.
Was there any way of making turning
We
lane?
cannot, because that's a county road,
That's
state
Well,
highway.
that's my next point. is that county and state.
One lane bridge, right? Yeah.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah,
You
and
need turning
we
lanes
did
below.
talk to, DOT, I believe, and what they said is they will not even look at it until the projects are done. They will not.
So that is the point of what
Yes,
we're paying for, not
that's-
to develop.
And there's some points that you just brought up there.
Are you taking into account the expansion of the bridge in a certain number of years?
That's New Jersey Transit, that's not us.
We've requested New Jersey Transit to look at it, and
Yeah, no, but in the future, there is a plan to expand it to meet Mount Airy Road, the renovations they made, that's all coming together. So you have to keep it in mind that the footprint of the
That's a good
whole.
point. That's the major bottleneck right there.
that's,
Yeah, it is.
and I promise you, Nancy has sent more communications to them than she probably wants. Oh, she kind of.
Yeah.
That's why she left.
So, but Jeff, that's a really important point. You know, in fact, we're not debating the plan. We debated the plan for months and months.
That's fine, I was here for that.
But just since you brought it up, there are things that we were able to get from the developer as part of this process, and that was the previous process, such as taking the wings off the building and improve the sidewalk. As Bob knows, who's chair of our planning board, if there's an existing building, the existing building has the right to remain. If it's not substantial renovation, that's what the planning board does. That was one of the considerations in about 8 months of consideration with the plan itself that we were able to do.
Yeah. And the building will be set back quite a bit, so that I know that flat picture, it looks like it's looming over, but we're getting a 10-foot sidewalk, 9-foot sidewalk. So when you get a walk around that corner, you have to step around the telephone pole, that will now be 9 feet. And also as you turn, now you can see when you're turning, so there's some safety features that I think we insisted on.
Why are you
the planning board's responsibilities. That's my question. Why are you looking at a traffic study? Why are you looking at parking? And maybe that's the way this works. It's all to be done by the council and.
So,
Against
so
zoning board.
the issue is, so at the planning board, and I've been through a bunch of these with you.
Yeah.
They'll bring their own traffic expert, and traffic expert says it's gonna generate 5 cars per day. So the thing that we realize is, and this probably will involve you guys, the planning board at some point, we need a professional that's looking out at the borough level. So from the periphery, the entirety of the borough, the way traffic's funneling through our town, do we need to change traffic patterns? Do we need to change?
Yeah, I have an issue with the global thing and I've been working on that for years and years, but. This application has a parking element, this application has a traffic element, and it's supposed, I thought it's supposed to be handled by the planning board. And it's not, I'm worried you're doing all this stuff up front. Getting it all and you're just presenting it to us and saying, that's it. Yeah, that's the deal. And if that's the way it's supposed to be, because of all the special aspects, it's just important to know that, because otherwise we're just rubber stamping something that you guys have done the whole planning board's job essentially. And
You want to?
Yeah, sure. So just to be clear, this project will have to submit a site plan application before the planning board and be evaluated and receive site plan approval by the planning board in the ordinary course. Right, the only difference is the planning board will be using the redevelopment plan as the basis for the compliance rather than the underlying zoning. And where the redevelopment plan doesn't talk about it, then it is the underlying zoning. That redevelopment plan went before the planning board, where the planning board was able to provide comments and recommendations with respect to the redevelopment plan before it was adopted by the governing body. So I think there's a 2-part process here. There's the plan itself, which was reviewed by the planning board, and there's the site plan application, which will be reviewed by the planning board in the ordinary course of the project.
the plan changed. The planning board did not see the plan. We don't know.
I think we're going off the top of the highway, so then we can go.
So before you nail everything down here, and forget the global parking, but traffic, parking, and so forth, where you search parking. Some of that should be handled by the planning board and not just unilaterally dictated by the council, in my opinion.
So the things that have been improved are additional setbacks, additional sidewalks, right? Because we did not want the zoning that was, I think, 2 feet for front in that zone.
Plus, I think follow.
Yeah.
That's what the planning board.
Maybe, I don't know if anyone wants to make a comment about that, I'd like to follow the question, maybe we kind of.
Yeah.
Don't think a lot of us.
Diane, do you want?
I don't know if you want to make a comment, Diane.
No, I think that the public has made all the comments I need to hear.
Okay, thank you. All right.
So Jay, you call the question?
So, roll call, please.
Ms. Amara,
Yes.
Ms. Rivera,
20 comments before I go. I know I made a lot of comments, but I have more to say. So I totally get the opposition to the project. It's fair, right? Some people do not like the density, do not like the look, they think it's ugly, they don't like the placement. It's no project is going to have 100% support. It's not all good. Anybody who says everything is good, or anybody who says everything is bad, it's just not accurate. My only interest is protecting the borough and protecting us, and financially, this financial agreement protects the borough. And it is crystal clear to me that it absolutely does. Chad said it was 5% commercial, it's 7% that's commercial that comes from commercial properties in this borough. That's a ridiculously low number. That should be like 20% coming from commercial and other properties in this borough. Right now, obviously 93%, over 90% is really on the back of taxpayers, which is completely unsustainable here. This one project will move that number from commercial into the double digits, allowing us to not only reinvest in the community, but do what we've already done, which is lower the tax rate on members of this community. So, for me, like I said, I think financially, moving from deriving $17,000 in benefit from this property to over $400,000 in climbing over the life, seeing tens of millions of dollars for our residents makes it absolutely crystal clear to me. So, yes.
Okay.
Mr. McQueen?
What you just said, when I ran twice, I ran on fiscal discipline, improving revenues, and, you know, increasing the value of this borough. Somebody's about ready to spend $50 million on one piece of property. The thing that isn't discussed at all is what the value is going to be to the coffee shop, to the print shop. I know Rich is on the phone. So all the businesses that are going to benefit from having additional foot traffic. When we did our first studies about the downtown, one of the first things that our experts told us, not somebody else's experts, our experts, is the reason why all the stores have paper in them is there aren't enough people. People keep the businesses open. People will now, there will be some people there, and there will be tangential benefit to every single business that is in our downtown. And from a fiscal perspective, this is something I can't say no to, so I'm there.
Okay, like Chad, I look to our experts, and this is the whole reason why we went and hired Mr. Jessup and the NW financial analyst, not only for this financial agreement, but we were also doing it from a pure redevelopment attorney perspective across the board. We originally didn't even hire Mr. Jessup for this project, but he took it over, and I'm very thankful that he did. And I don't look to myself because I'm in pharmaceuticals and I'm in IT for most of my career. I don't know anything about redevelopment and planning boards, but I know what experts know, and I have data, and I use them to make the best decision that I have with the data that I have. And I believe that what they're telling me is true. I'd like to hire the engineer and make sure that we can look at the traffic patterns for that. It's one of the only things that I didn't get when I voted for this redevelopment back in September of 2022. And I ran for re-election in November of 2022. So I'm still sitting here. So obviously the people of the town voted me back in for whatever reason that they did, but based on my prior track record. So when we look at this, I've gotten every single thing on my list when I approved the area of redevelopment in the first place, except for the traffic. And the traffic we have, as we pointed out already, one lane bridge coming in on one side, and we've got a county road and a state road coming through the middle, and then JDOT. All of those things combined don't allow anything to move forward before this moves forward. We have to keep our eye on the ball, and we can't let it drop. And you should also hold future council people accountable for that as well. And you're voting. I'm sorry. Yeah, I have two more things. Sorry. We have great businesses in town, and this will hopefully raise the bar. We need to bring in more people, more potential patrons, as Chad mentioned, and potential employees for those businesses as well. So I'm a yes. Thank you.
Ms. Greenfield?
No.
So I just wanted, I support the plan, make a few very brief comments. When this came up originally in terms of being an area in need of redevelopment, I didn't agree with it. But now that we've made that decision, I think it's incumbent upon this group to maximize what we can get out of the property and working with the developer. I also agree with Gina and Chad that we need to follow the advice of the experts that we have, and I've chosen to do that on the finances, on the school impact, and given the benefit impacts, I vote yes.
All right, the motion passed. All right, thank you all for taking and your input. We appreciate having the public here. And those on Zoom, but there's more.
There's more meeting if you want.
Can I just make one comment that I hope, because you feel so financially strapped here, you all are going to do something. Real estate values and sales of houses is definitely related to the school. The school in September was 50th in New Jersey. The school has just been told they're 65th in New Jersey. This does nothing for house sales. Ridge houses stay on the market 2 days, 3 days, they're gone. Here, they get twice in Ridge, what we get here.
Thank you, Barbara.
There is, you can get more money, but you're talking about the fact that you don't have enough revenue because real estate isn't bringing in enough revenue. Well, you can do something to help us.
I can talk about the school board, the school board needs to be accountable for this.
Well, exactly, and we're a town, so why can't Borough
Thank
Council
you,
talk to the
gentlemen,
school?
for,
Because you're right,
sharing it.
You
Appreciate it.
and Paul.
All
Why do we
right,
never
I'd
communicate?
like to open the public hearing on ordinance 2023-1984, an ordinance adopting regulations for privately owned salt storage and supplementing and amending chapter 22 of the Borough Code entitled Stormwater Regulations. Jack, would you just like to tell us why we have to do this?
We have to do it because it's mandated by the federal EPA and the state DEP. They mandated that few eight communities adopt a number of stormwater ordinances, including this. So in my opinion, we don't have any choice, we have to adopt it.
And if we don't, if we just. Yeah, you were saying we all voted down just for print on the principle.
I think we could face fines and probably permits being denied.
What if we abstain?
I'm sorry,
What if we abstain?
so the next.
Same as turning it down.
It's same as turning it down. Let's let.
Have a public hearing, and then.
Yeah.
No, state regulations supersede. They do. No, they mandate we adopt the stormwater ordinance.
So would anyone in the public like to be heard on this particular ordinance? On storm storage? Yes, go ahead.
Steve Reynolds, 27 Spring Street. I'm wondering if you just give me like a 2-second, like, I don't understand what this is exactly. Is that something you can tell me real quick? Or no?
That's regulates storage of salt on private property.
On private property.
Yes.
So in my layman's understanding is if you have a bag of salt,
I guess,
if you want to spread someday, you have to store it in a special way.
Yes.
Not really.
No. It is interesting.
So it doesn't get into the ground.
Right, basically, it says though, if you have like a bag of salt and keep it in your garage or a shed or something like that, like it's not. You have to build a separate property for your salt.
Yeah, right.
Separate structure.
That's not concerned, I can't store the salt or piled up in the burn.
Right.
Who enforces it?
It's self-enforced.
It's not enforceable. It's not enforceable unless you're gonna have the garage door police goes around investigating everyone's garage door salt bags. It's not an enforceable order.
Yeah, that may be, this is the model.
Well, it's like any DEP ordinance, if they're not gonna come out and check, but if your neighbor sees it and calls them, they'll come out and check.
I guess one question, like, does our environmental commission have a opinion about?
Yeah, I think that, we can do something with education for people and just like other things, we'll just try to follow it. We've always had ordinances where salt shouldn't be exposed commercially and we follow that. And that's fine, and people don't want to waste their salt, you leave it out, if you waste it, and it's not a function, and I will do whatever I can for public education so that you have less enforcement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
But they're ultimately gonna put it on the ground, right? That's where the disconnect is.
Well,
Yeah, but not in concentration, so what?
They haven't seen, they haven't seen you spread salt.
All right, anyone else want to be heard on this particular ordinance? I don't know.
This is the one that I met on before, but, I'll let them, this is Dave Whitting.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to go back on an old topic. I was trying to get people's attention before. I know I don't have an agenda here. I think it should be developed in some form. I just want to make sure that the tax shield's appropriate. So I'm just going to make a couple of quick comments on this. So I think it was a Chad or Al. I think we're talking about, the money side of it. What's the net cash flow this thing is going to bring in over the period? Everyone talks revenue. What's like net cash flow? Can someone just answer that?
He's talking about,
He's on the last one. Yeah.
maybe we can wait for the last public
Yeah,
session.
let's head on, because we're on a different topic, but we have another public session. Yeah.
Oh, okay, it'll be quick. I'll do it then. Yeah, thank you.
So anyone else want to put on the soft ordinance? Assuming not, so I will close the public hearing. Christine, you want to do that one?
I move to pass ordinance 2023-1984 on final reading and adopt as published.
I'll second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Greenway,
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield.
No, this isn't an enforceable ordinance. I'm voting.
Ms. McCready,
Yes.
Mr. McCready.
Step down.
Oh, sorry, I didn't do that. Who's that there?
Sorry. I have one right more than.
I didn't see it.
I guess I have no choice, so I'm reluctant to say yes.
Mr. Rivera.
I would like to write, some kind of a memo on behalf of the borough to the nonsensicalness of this. I don't know, I think everyone's in favor of that.
Is it gonna fall on deaf ears?
It's a waste of time. I'm just.
Maybe you can write to our assembly and senators.
So, but to Jenna's point, we're just waiting for tax dollars.
Yeah,
Memo
exactly.
nowhere.
Yes.
One of us.
Jen, you want to do the next one?
Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Mr. Rivera.
Jack, I think we could get fined or sued.
Yeah, and
Okay,
like I
yes.
said, they can hold their permits, they hold all the cards.
Okay.
Sorry,
Is that it?
Yeah.
Mrs. Mayor.
And
Yes.
Okay. All right, now, would you move?
I moved to ordinance 2023-1985, amending ordinance 2023-1977, which appropriated $150,000 for library building, public restroom renovation to be introduced by title, passed on first reading, published according to law, and a public hearing is scheduled for a meeting at 7 p.m. Monday, November 13th, 2023.
Whoa.
All in favor? No, stop, you're not part of this council, so.
You're talking about spending money on restrooms?
Library.
Library and
This is only the introduction, public hearing will be at the next meeting. Okay. Roll call, I know, voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to resolutions. There's a couple here, I just want to make some comments on. 23-200, these employee appointments. One of the things I wanted to mention is since we're no longer under COVID or a state of emergency, we have asked our employees to come back to the office. A lot of them were working from home. I know this council, we all agree that our role is customer service. That's what we are. We are a customer service organization, and we feel it's important that our employees are here and available all the time for our residents. A number of our employees opted to resign rather than come back into the office full time. The good thing is it gave us the opportunity to restructure how we do business in our offices. And the credit goes to our administrator, Nancy Mulrule, who has done an incredible job of reorganizing, restructuring, bringing in some really talented people. And in the meantime, saved us over $70,000. So I want to give her a lot of credit for doing that. So that's what that 22-200 is about, is that's kind of moving people around and reassigning jobs to.
And it's been about accountability, which I'm very thankful to Nancy.
Yeah. Yes. Also, the 23-209, this is the commodity resale agreement, which we have had an informal agreement. This is making it formal with the school district for them to have their buses. Isn't that what it's for, the fuel? So it's not anything new, it's formalizing that agreement. Anybody else have other ones they want to discuss?
203, we should say them.
Yes, every year they make a generous donation to the state department, so thank you to the Paragon for that.
I wanted to say, like, good job on the environmental commission. You guys played a big role in getting the styrofoam recycling shared service. And with Nancy's help, so that.
Yeah.
That's the deal.
And our environmental commission.
Kathy Redling and Michelle Connor for instrumental on that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other ones?
I think 210 would be good, if you're trying to try 4 shared services, and this one's
Yeah.
dissolving one, so that would be great next time. as well.
Yeah, and also the borough savings as well.
Is somebody for that one?
Yeah.
210.
Yeah.
23.
So, for the last, at least year and a half, you have been sharing services with Berners Township for fire prevention, which is fire official and fire inspectors for annual commercial inspections. Earlier this year, the CFO brought to my attention that the agreement was coming due with a date. Well, it's over at the end of the year, but we had to let Berners know if we didn't want to continue or not. She brought to my attention that we were losing a significant, or that it's costing us a significant amount of money. Unlike how it was raised to you, how the issue was originally raised to you, that we would bring in about $115,000 a year. Instead, we were losing somewhere between $30,000 and $60,000 a year. And we're paying Berners Township $98,750 a year for the service. Some of that is taken up by the fees that people have to pay every year, but we have to make up the difference. And between the loss of the fees that we're able to collect plus what we have to pay, the difference, the net loss to us was somewhere between $30,000 and $60,000 a year. So in talking to a lot of people, including Berners Township administrator and CFO, we concluded that it would be more cost effective to bring it back in-house and to provide the same amount of services, or same level of services, but become more cost effective and save money. Over the past couple of weeks, I've had conversations with the employees from Berners because they were hired specifically for this shared service. And if the shared service ended, so did their employment with Berners. That's what we're told by their administrator. So I have had a conversation with one of the inspectors who has agreed to come on board with us, and I'm told that the second one will as well. The fire official is a full-time employee of Berners, and he has agreed to come on for a limited number of hours for the first year to carry us over into the transition and train one of the fire inspectors. Also has a fire official license, so to train him as an official, because we need both. So what I estimate is that we will be able to provide the exact same service to all of our commercial businesses for a savings of somewhere between, I can't do the math backwards, but can I just say a significant savings?
Yeah, over 70,000.
Yeah.
I've done, the math is good. And it's a perfect example of how thinking creatively for a problem. So kudos to you. We have the same employees doing the same job. Costing us half as much.
Yeah.
So, well done.
Thanks.
All right, any other ones? Any other questions? All right, would somebody like to move them?
I move that resolutions 23-196 to 23-215 be adopted.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Treaty,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen.
Yes.
Mr. Rivera.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Mayor's update.
I'm happy to pass it, but for 213, the grant application for electric vehicle. It says the EC is not aware of that. Where's that grant coming from? And who's doing the application?
Kathy Redmond and then
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, mayor's update. I actually was at Bedwell for an interview with several fourth grade girls. Mr. T, Mr. Thurlow invited me in, which I thought was really Because they, wanted to know what a mayor does, and it was, they're gonna do a little newsletter that I'll, if it's any good, I'll share it. I officiated at my 12th wedding last weekend. I did attend the open house, for fire and first aid, which was last Saturday. They had a really good turnout. And saw this machine that was incredible that I'm gonna be putting in for the budget, that, the compression machine, I was showing it to Nancy, that I think our first aid should definitely have. They're always looking for volunteers, so please, check them out. They're a great bunch of guys. I got to meet our fire inspectors. They were there and I'm very impressed with them. We had the haunted history tour this past Saturday, which went pretty well. A lot of weather was good, and I think we had maybe 150 people. So we had our third meeting. I think I mentioned to you, I'm on the League of Municipalities Working Group for Housing, for affordable housing. We had the third forum with probably close to 50 mayors on it. It was a Zoom forum. Again, the main issue coming up is having the ability locally to set a certain percentage aside for our own residents. That seems to be a big issue with almost every mayor that was on the call. And so many stories and nightmares of how people, what they have to do to meet these requirements. So we really are hoping to get ahead of the next round of assessments. I'm on the stigma-free committee for the county, and I'm going to be giving out flyers to our local healthcare providers on resources for mental health and resources for substance abuse. So if you're in your doctor's office, you might see one of those. They did a great job putting together. Actually, I think they're very great. I thought I'd put a couple in here if you want to see what they look like. I'll find them. Sunday, I met with a third grade Brownie troop, who also were working on their democracy badge. So that was really a fun thing. And then Gina and I just met with some Boy Scouts before this meeting, who also were learning about government. So nice to see them get involved. Just a reminder, November 4th, we have the Back in Time at Upton Pine. Everything is in place. We just need people to buy tickets. So if you haven't yet, it's going to be a fun time. That's me, yes.
I just wonder if people could, is there a way to pay by check if people don't have a computer, they don't want to use their cards on the computer?
Talk to you later.
Okay.
Okay.
You need to push a little more advertising on that.
Yeah.
It's just a thought.
Okay, I think that should put something, I have to give you, had something for Burlington News. Administrative report.
I just have a few things. One, there's been a lot of talk about the fire department. The CFO and I met with the leadership of the fire company, the volunteers and the fire chief. This week, actually, last week, this week. And it was a very good meeting. And while they always need volunteers, as everybody was saying, they're okay for fire, but they really need EMT. So if anybody's interested in becoming EMT, they're really in need of those.
Nancy, sorry, do they need drivers or do they need PMTs? Because there's, I understand it's like a 4-month or more class.
It's a very long.
EMT, but the driver is different.
Yeah, I think it's like 150 hours for the EMT. I think that, well, full certified licensed EMTs would be the best if they had drivers. So they could, they could run a call. I don't know if they have a minimum for like fire, but let's just say they had a driver and, an EMT, so they could run the ambulance with 2 people. I think that would probably help. It'd be better than not having anybody, volunteer. So, drivers would be better than nothing. And I also will prepare a report with all the figures. I had the number of calls and things like that. I believe it's 350, average of 350 a year for fire and 450 for EMS. So if, I was gonna say that for the public safety meeting, but, if you have any questions, let me know about fire. The other thing I wanted to bring up for the benefit of the public, because we have discussed it to death, is the fact that we are no longer moving to 150 Morristown Road. We're no longer moving anywhere right now. Unfortunately, we just could not come to terms I agree to terms on the lease. And I say unfortunately because I think it would have been good. I think it would have been good for us as an organization. I think it would have been good for the public to have one place to go. I can't tell you how many times people come here and they need to talk to Riker or planning and zoning. But, you know, for a number of reasons, it is not gonna work out, and I'm gonna look at options to make it a better environment here and better for the.
I think that's important to me. Obviously, we came to the conclusion this was not going to work. We shouldn't stop the conversation about what should work and what could. So let's not let this conversation die.
Nope, I walk in every day and think about it.
You have to live with it every day.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
That's all I have.
thank you.
Figure out some way to solicit creative thoughts, you know, just creating things to trigger something else.
Do I have a motion to accept the monthly reports?
I'll move on.
There we go. All in favor? Public safety.
Oh, me? Okay. It's hard to hear when you're on Zoom. I don't like it up here. We discussed the accreditation update. It's on track. Our 2 new patrol officers has started at the academy. Brianna is also working at the police department covering for crossing guard duty and doing administrative work. She has a waiver, so she's only going for part of the time. Connor's going full time. They will be with us, both be with us full time in April. We're waiting for the county agreement regarding the Mount Airy and Prospect Crosswalk flashing lights project. Doug Walker, our borough borough manager, project manager, attended a sidewalk grant informational meeting and will report when he returns from his vacation. CELO 2 hire at the high school should be approved at the next Board of Education meeting. We discussed having a representative from Fire First Aid attend the first 15 minutes or so of the public safety meetings to report perhaps number of calls and any information or projects, problems that they have within their apartments. So everybody could be on the same page. Public safety is exploring a dispatch backup plan in case our current dispatch console goes down. And we discussed briefly discussed whether an additional crosswalk mid-block at the Essex Avenue is necessary.
Thank you. Finance, Jamie?
Yes, we met on Friday, October 13th. We started with economic development is actually a follow-up to the Main Street Bernardsville conversation that we had at a previous council meeting. The borough is in the middle of processing its appropriation for this year, Main Street Bernardsville. Obviously, they had a couple of events that they committed to finalize with those funds. We also said that if they feel like they had any additional funding for this year, they can come back to us and we can discuss this council. I think you need to put that to Olivia as well. There is support for identifying enhanced funding for Main Street Bernardsville in 2024, but a work plan will be needed for Main Street Bernardsville on how those funds could be utilized at these events, marketing, economic development, et cetera. And then we thought a good idea would be open to discussing further consistent funding as part of our economic development efforts. In other words, if the pilot passed and there's other economic development efforts in the borough, we can actually leverage those funds to have a consistent source going into downtown redevelopment efforts, potentially funding Main Street Bernardsville. So there were the 3 areas that we wanted to report back on council for consideration. And then we touched on the 2024 budget. We just, we need to start working on meeting regularly as a committee on the budget adoption. We have certain constituencies in the borough, particularly the library, that we'd like to meet with to understand their budget needs. And then just trying to general call, start thinking of other potential areas we want to discuss, or potentially make the budget savings, given the constraints on our budget.
Thank you. Okay. Personnel did not meet. But there's been a lot going on. Yeah, we did a lot. Yes, we did. Public Works.
Public Works meets tomorrow.
Okay. Land use, we don't really. Okay,
Planning board,
sure.
planning board was the world's quickest meeting ever. We were supposed to once again hear back on that properties, was it got scheduled, I haven't gone far, we haven't meeting next Thursday. I was very thankful for what the 4-hour meeting only last 30 minutes.
Any other liaison reports from boards or committees? Diane?
HPAC met on October 12th. We discussed properties up for HPAC review with the Planning Board and Board of Adjustment. We discussed HPAC's content review of the Main Street, Bernardsville's Design Committee's Museum in the Streets project. Housing didn't meet. Recreation has not met yet, but the winter programming is up. And there's a number of art classes, enrichment, and sports and fitness classes. And people could sign up at Community Pass, which is in the Recreation Department section of the Borough website.
Okay, everybody else have any? Holidays and tree lighting for December 2nd, Saturday, what is it, 4 o'clock? Yeah. I would like to propose that we approve this, but with the condition that if the tree is not down by, I don't know, January 15th.
This says January 31.
It's too long.
Yeah.
Let's say the 15th, and if it's not, then we either take it down and then build them, or we fine for each day it's up. Because it just stayed up way too long.
So are we gonna be able to find, is there
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It'd be a violation of our ordinance, so yes, it's like.
It's a regular ordinance.
Awesome.
Yeah, and the ordinance specifically says the first Saturday after whatever.
And it says the penalty set forth in section
I'm
1.
not against that. There is-
Saying we're taking it down on January. You put it up and we'll put it down. Oh,
Yeah. And that goes for the roofs too. yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so we're good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
January 15th, as Nancy said. Give them more time to do ordinance.
Parking lots, Park Mobile, that's you.
Yeah. You had asked, about looking into, additional vendors for parking. We currently use pay by phone. So I looked into Park Mobile as well. And, I had a presentation, Anthony Thunder with me. Is definitely our recommendation to go with Park Mobile over pay by phone. Besides the additional services they offer to residents, they offer multiple ways to pay. They provide signage. It's probably the vendor that you see most throughout the state when you go to a parking lot. They're extremely convenient. They take care of everything. There would be the merchant of record. And even considering all of that, the amount of revenue that we bring in would be 20% more than with pay by phone.
Okay.
So, it's better service. And costs us less, or makes us more money if you want to look at it that way.
What's the initial investment? Is there an initial
I'm
investment?
sorry,
Is there an initial investment?
no, it's on a pay by transactions.
Any requirement for enforcement on our end?
So that was the next thing I was gonna say, is that I did have a conversation with Sergeant Richard, because he handles traffic. And he has a follow-up call on Wednesday with them about enforcement, but it does not require that you have numbered spaces. It is by license plate, you put your license plate in, so it is enforced by license plate. So he's gonna talk to them about exactly how it's enforced, but he was confident as well that this would be the way to go. He just wanted to get some questions answered. So I think that for right now, we just have the train station. I think that Pay by Phone is asking us to renew our contract. I suggest that we go with Park Mobile for that, but then you need to have a bigger conversation about what additional lots that you wanted to add, because we did. That's how we started the conversation. That also is dependent on, I think, the conversation that you mentioned earlier, that we need to have with the planner and engineer to talk about parking as a whole. So it's all related, but I think for now, the recommendation would be just to switch the train station, because that's the only place that we actually.
But if we don't enforce, that's what I'm worried about. If, let's say they say that 25% of the cars in the train station have gone past the time, and they're expecting any kind of revenue from that or anything, I want to make sure that we're not locking ourselves into enforcement.
No, so they don't expect revenue on that. Their revenue is by transaction.
So no tie to enforcement at all.
Oh, for them, no.
Okay, all right.
But it's mainly, I think, it would probably be so many parts that he doesn't bother to pay, like once you.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with us enforcing it. What I just don't want to have happen is that all of a sudden we go from whatever amount of tickets we are right now to 10 times that, because Park Mobile says, well, you have to enforce, because that's a revenue stream. That's what I'm saying. That's not the case.
So yeah, but just want to secondarily verify, so Park Mobile has no expectation of enforcement, yes, that's what we're.
They don't have the authority to enforce.
Yeah.
Or like a minimum requirement.
But the thing is that the enforcement will be easier for the police department because it can be accessed electronically.
Yeah.
But they don't, so what happens is the money for the transactions goes to them and then they pay us every month, so we don't even have to process the money, which is great. Their cost is based on a per transaction fee plus, a percentage of each transaction. So they're not, I don't think they're even concerned about people who go over their time and, would have to get a parking ticket, like that's completely separate for us.
But if we enforce it, it's all greater revenue.
Right, if we enforce it and then people, extend their time at the parking meter, then that is more revenue for both of us.
But we enforce it just like a parking meter.
Right,
Yeah,
they do the sign, you said, they provide.
So they provide the signs, and ads, but DPW would have to put them on.
Is there any minimum contract that we have to sign if they're providing the sign?
I have to ask that, but I believe it's a year contract.
So it's a year, so, okay. So if we decided this was miserable in 3 months, we'd have to wait a total of 12 months. Or we retracted that statement.
Yeah, but I don't think it's gonna.
To start it at the train station.
Yes,
See
yeah.
how it works before, just give it a year. I mean, the last one was not working so much, so.
Yeah, so we're gonna just start this on one parking lot and see if it's working first, right?
Yeah, where we kept the current one, the current on the right side of the train
Okay.
station.
But that's kind of, sorry, Diane, you good? Okay, so that's what I was afraid of, because the other one hasn't been working. Like, I know, people have gone there and they didn't even park in the lot because they couldn't figure out how to pay, or it wasn't working, it wasn't registering, so they left and went and parked elsewhere. Now, I think it's kind of like commonplace that people just say, we just park here and nobody cares, and nobody's enforcing it, and you can't pay. It's always broken. So that's why I was worried about the signage, because I want to make sure that when this is put in, that it's clear to all the residents that this is now in place, and when they park, and they used to go to Bistro 73 for dinner and park in the train station, that they can't do that anymore. Well, they're gonna get a ticket. Well, they can pay $2, but I'm just saying, if they don't know that we now switched, they're not gonna pay at all, and they're gonna go in, they'll come out with a ticket on their car.
But also, we usually don't not charge after 7 p.m.
Right.
Well, so that was another thing that Tim wanted to do, is to review our ordinances for times. We're all over the place and I guess they're done piecemeal. So,
if I think one of the motivations, at night is when we have out of town folks coming into our town and taking up our parking spaces, right? That should benefit our residents more than. So if I was going to do it, I wouldn't necessarily want to see it as primarily during the day, when residents are here, they're commuting, but it's when we have folks coming out of the town to use the services, and the residents should benefit.
So you're saying we should have it on night?
I would agree with it.
So, I think that what, the sergeant and I will do is put together a summary of what we have in what lot. And then you can review how you'd like to change them. But in answer to your question, there will be plenty of signage. There's several ways to pay. You can pay by app if you download it and register. You can pay on website, I would guess easier, and you can also pay by text. You can also call if you don't have any of those means. And you can use your debit card, credit card, PayPal, Google Pay, Apple Pay, or a preloaded wallet to actually do the paying. You can also use a kiosk. They won't provide a kiosk, but they will integrate with whatever kiosk we have. So that's something else I want to look at because the kiosk breaks all the time.
I know.
So that was part of the whole study, but for now, I think that if you're okay with it, we will let them know that we'll start with them in the train station.
Yep.
Okay.
So there's no enforcement.
Yeah, the police. Just like I said, the second parking meeting. Like, we will enforce.
Yeah, so we are gonna enforce it.
Yeah, we are gonna enforce it. The question I had was, does Park Mobile have a requirement for us to enforce it in their contract? 'Cause that's what I'd be worried about.
It's our option.
Yeah.
Right, but we should enforce. Yeah.
And we get basically their portable unit we get to do the enforcement, correct?
Yeah, I guess Sergeant Richards can talk to them about.
But, yeah,
mechanics.
you can't talk now. Sorry. It's not public talking at the moment. Sorry. Okay, I shared with you, I know we had talked about looking at other ways for the valet to work. I shared with you that, Dr. Chang and MB were talking about, some kind of a lease. I don't know if it's gonna work out, but at least we're trying some other alternatives for that. Next is a request for a crosswalk across Essex Avenue. Diane, what was Public Works, Public Safety's take on that?
Well, it was hard to see from the picture that we were shown. We came to the conclusion that we really didn't see the necessity for this because there is a crosswalk already there at, by Claremont. And we figured if people were leaving the apartment building, they would go down to Claremont to go into town. They wouldn't go across the street midway to another parking lot. I didn't understand what the purpose of the crosswalk was.
So, Diane, I guess my comment would be, and I guess I'm looking at Nancy, we just brought in the traffic engineer. Crosswalking patterns, crosswalking hasn't been part of our conversation with her yet, but maybe that should be part of the assessment.
The plan.
Yes.
It can be, I know that this particular application was before the planning board, and this was a requirement of the planning board to ask you.
Oh, so is that one, okay,
Just to
I
ask.
apologize.
Right,
Okay,
so,
but not have to.
no, you don't have to, it was to petition you to do it, and if you say no, then it's no, but they need an answer so they can move on with their development.
Just allowing.
I mean, it was a recommendation from the public
No,
safety
they
committee
don't put it.
to put us crosswalk
Yeah, they're
in
one.
the street.
It's us to put it in, right? It would be our responsibility to put it in.
You sure?
Yeah, we have to do it.
Of the road,
Yeah,
but the recommendation from the public safety guys is that we do not move forward with this, because it's in the middle of the street and there's a crosswalk 30 feet away.
So that was about,
That was the public safety, yeah.
that was Remy's.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
He said it's not needed, based on the traffic and where it's currently located versus where the new one.
The chief I trust.
No, oh,
Yeah, that's the county. You have to get the county to do that. Best practices.
wait, so do we, so that,
We said no. I think that was the consensus.
okay. Best
practices, how did we do that?
So best practices, for those who don't know, this is an annual requirement by the state. It is a lot of questions, I believe this year was 68, although a lot of them are unscored, so they're for informational purposes only. It's a way for the state to try to make sure that municipalities are enacting best practices, and if you are not doing enough of them, then you get penalized by losing certain percentage of state aid. So we needed, the magic number this year was 29 to get our full state aid, and we had 35 positives, so we were about, there are some things that, we had the answer no on that we're working on getting them to the guesses for next year. But, you know, we weren't in danger of losing any state aid.
Excellent. Good, all right. We did have some correspondence.
I'm sorry, maybe before you do that, Councilman Rivera had brought up earlier the $12,000 for Main Street, Bernardsville, and that was based on a resolution that you did 3 years ago, and it was, this is the third year of the 3 years, but you're supposed to, I think, affirm it every year. So I don't know if that's allowed by motion, Jack.
Yeah, good motion.
So I don't know if you want to discuss it or you just want to make a motion to approve.
It's already in the budget, we've already committed to them.
Yeah.
Maybe we should obviously, nobody should perform, we're doing great work, carrying out events at the end of the year. I think we should make a motion to pay, fulfill our commitment of what the funding we allocated at 12K plus, I think it's, is it exactly 12,000?
Yeah, exactly.
About 12,000 for Main Street Bernardsville.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we can do that. Moving on to correspondence, we did have 2 letters, and I believe they've all been answered. Most of the comments that Matt and NW made, I think, addressed those. Do we have any unfinished business?
I haven't heard any progress report on the architect for the programs and the lights.
We talked about that. Wait. Not the lights, the pavilion.
The pavilion lights, yeah, where are we with that project?
Okay, that's tomorrow night.
Talking about our next, okay.
Okay, any new business?
There was that sheet that I put about the recreation. That came out. I just heard from the mayor, I wasn't sure about that.
Oh, the 130.
The one that was Sarah.
The 6. Something.
Yeah, I remember what it was called, oh, yeah.
I don't understand why we're involved in this.
I don't either. That was my question today.
All right, so the way that this came up, actually for a different event, but the same vendor. A few months ago, Recreation had asked me, is there something we need to do? Because when alcohol is involved, there's always something, right? So this is being done at a private facility, except Recreation is involved because they are, I guess, helping to publicize it and registering people, and then they get I guess it's $10 per person fee. I contacted our risk manager and asked if there was any risk to us, because I mean, God forbid something happened, you know, we would probably be included in a lawsuit. So he responded that it would be okay as long as council approved it. So I guess maybe Jack, you tell me, you're just acknowledging that we are involved and you're.
So.
It sounds to me like we're marketing for them and getting.
Well, no, but it says that the people, the Marquis or whoever they are, the business that's doing the craft part is being hired by Recreation.
Oh, okay.
No, they're not being hired by Recreation. I think essentially they're collecting the fee probably through Community Pass and then just giving it to them, but taking their.
Yes,
As
it's like
administrative.
what we do with everything. We do Abercrombie the same way. We used to do fairy tale the same way. They are like, they're called vendor run programs from a recreation perspective. So the vendor does all the work, but we could either provide a facility or just provide the administrative work and we get a portion of.
Right, and because we can't provide a facility because there's alcohol, it is being done in a private establishment. But you're just acknowledging that you're okay with our involvement with it for purposes of being covered by insurance.
So we are covered, if we know.
That's what there is, man.
That's what he said. So as long as council approves it.
So I would, by motion, and if you want to approve it by motion, acknowledge the alcohol being served.
And simply by doing it, we absolve ourselves of all responsibility.
No,
No, we are covered by insurance.
that's all I have.
We are covered by insurance.
Something I want.
Okay,
Okay,
do I have a motion?
I'll move to say that we are
So-
associated.
Can I just ask one question before we do? Sorry. Do we have to collect the money for them? If they're just using our community pass, they don't have the revenue, I mean, okay, what do you like, $100?
I believe it's $70 and then recreation gets 15% of that, so roughly $10.
So what they're doing is really getting the program for them.
So could they do it by themselves? Yes,
They could, but they're part of our program. They're,
Let's vote. I've already wasted $10 of my energy.
yeah. I'll second Christine's motion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Yes, I am. Okay. We have our second open session for items not listed for a public hearing. So if anyone from the public would like to speak on any topic, feel free. Let's see, Kathy. Kathy, you there?
I am. Hi.
Stand up so late with us.
Hi, Kathy Peachy, 70 Chilton Street. Couple 4 points. First of all, I just wanted to thank Fran Daly. Fran is, she is our librarian. She does not live locally. She has a family, and yet she attends these meetings with great intention, and she advocates for the library and all the programs that it provides. She contributes so much to our town. And I really appreciate it, and I just wanted to share that publicly. Secondly, I was impressed by all of the free professional input from so many of the town residents in regard to the pilot program. Your vote was your vote, but nonetheless, I thought it was very valuable to have so much educated commentary, and I appreciated that. Also, as you, the council, know, I'm very grateful. Here we are after 10 o'clock at night for your volunteerism. It is a campaign. It is a sought for position. You do campaign for it. And nonetheless, you know that I appreciate all the time and effort it takes. Finally, maybe because Mr. Graham is there, it might be good. I have a concern with the planning board going to a live stream only. Now that I was present for the last meeting, but nonetheless, we're going into a time of revitalization, redevelopment, and so forth, that we had talked about, like for the Palmer building, the scale, traffic, parking, precedent, all of those issues. Mayor Kanochi said we're part of the planning board. And so it feels very important that that still maintains a interactive hybrid ability. I don't know who made the decision to go live stream only. If that was all the planning board, I'd like to hear about that. If it was the majority of them, okay. But obviously, if it's only live stream, at that point, public comments is really not relevant, because it will be a day late and $1 short. So that's my comments. I would be interested to hear it. If that's just a temporary thing, well, the IT is tightened up, or if that's something that you plan to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you for the kind words. And we are very, I was amazed that you're here every meeting, so thank you for.
It is noticed, Frank.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeff went in.
Jeff?
I just want to say, I'm going to email my questions across. I think it's late enough. You guys have done a good job tonight, so I'll email across on Palmer.
Okay, thank you. Did we want to answer? the
You want to
question?
speak to the live streaming? It's really a planned issue.
It's really up to the planning, that was their decision, I believe.
So now it's our decision.
Well, I thought Steve Warner had commented that technically to swear people in, it should be done, I don't know, well, Steve Warner's opinion on that.
He said, well, initially it was done because of the hacking.
Right.
Right, until we can make sure that we would be able, if you went back, to do it securely. Still in the midst of getting the audit that we talked about, the cyber audit.
Yes.
I made some progress in that. The planning board attorney, though, did comment that in land use applications, he prefers it to be live because in order to swear somebody in order to take their testimony, you have to be able to see them. It's difficult because of technology issues to do it virtually, and while I guess it's not impossible, we get it for all that time, it is better in person. He said he preferred it that way.
But they could do hybrid.
I don't-
Once we finish this cyber audit, maybe.
I mean, I'd have to ask him, I guess.
But it would be up to them. Yeah, that's advice from the attorney, that is not correctly, it's really the cyber question, so whatever progress we made, it's open here, right? Great subject. But it's easier for us, I think, to conduct a public hearing, in case for you to have. It's up to you, once the technology is in place, it's your decision. That's really the issue, right? Availability of the technology, everything, and progress on it, keep making the progress.
Did anyone else in the public want to be heard at this point?
Yes.
Just real quickly, Aaron Duff, quick one, just for the record, I want to apologize to Mr. Jessup. No one's ever interrupted me up here when I speak, and shouldn't have not given this up. I'm sorry for that. On the tax exemption ordinance, obviously, I think it's the wrong decision. I think you putting a lot of taxpayer money at stake for a project that a lot of taxpayers don't want. But you own it now, so I hope it works out. Thank you.
Aaron, I said this to you before, I value your input and opinion on this thing, so please continue. I know we disagree, but I do value your thoughtfulness.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
I have a simple question, and it's on the library bathrooms. I just wondered which bathrooms are they talking about? There's the library bathrooms on the upper floor where the library is, and then there are the bathrooms on the basement. And what is that intending to remodel?
I don't know until I see the
The
ordinance.
one
next
when you
week.
walk in the front door.
To the left, yeah,
It can't be.
the public ones.
The ones that
The
don't.
two
work.
on when you walk in the front door.
May I?
Yeah.
Okay, so, the two public bathrooms as you walk into the library part of the building, the men's and the women's leak into technical services. There's a garbage bag wrapped around the urinal. And we have access panels cut all over the place looking for,
Repairing it.
trying to repair it. So we have reached the point, and the flushometers are like 5 years past their recommended age, that we are remodeling the fixtures and the surfaces. There's not any moving walls. The only like major difference from what's there, other like it's replacing and refacing. It's been analyzed for well over a year. I've only been here since November, but it's been talked about for eons. It's using capital funds that we've received as a bequest and have decided that this is the best use of them. And the bids came in as high as $350,000, and we are going with the lowest one according to the bid process.
Thank you. All right.
So
Can't go $190,000 for two public bathrooms. That's absurd. You can build them fresh, build them new, rip them out.
we have limitations that we're doing our best.
Prevailing wage.
I don't care. That's too much money, the taxpayer money to spend on two little bathrooms. They're 20 by 10s. Get another opinion, get more. So I'm glad to know it's just that. I thought you were gonna, for that amount of money, I thought you were gonna do the bathrooms downstairs too.
One of the biggest frustrations has been prevailing wage law. And I know they're talking about the polo grounds. literally, it's going to cost us 3 times more than if we did it through a public bid.
Yeah.
I mean, through private bid. It's infuriating. There's no other word.
Right, sure.
That's pretty expensive too.
Yes.
Good topic. Bear with me, I just want to make sure I go over everything. Kathleen Williams, 90 Rattle Top Road, for those of you that don't know me.
And Kathleen, you're the person that wasn't here for the other thing, we've been here for 4 hours.
Well, I was trying to be nice, I didn't want to introduce something new for all the contentious topic. I regret it at this moment. But that's fine, I knew that was a contentious topic, so. And my dad's the mayor, so I kind of get it, right? That's fine. Anyway, I just want to level set that I think we all agree that there are town ordinances regarding timing of resolving nuisances on someone's property once they're made aware. 2 weeks, maybe 30 days, right? Something to that effect. Fair, sounds fair? Okay, and I assume that covers all properties and all actions by individuals, companies, anything done to property in this town. Fair assumption? And I'm sure we agree that any of these nuisances or actions taken upon by the town cannot negatively impact anyone's property. Fair assumption? We'll leave it as a rhetorical question. So additionally, I just want to make sure we're all level set, and I'm sure your attorney will keep me honest. But there's an attractive nuisance doctrine in New Jersey, which basically holds that it is the property owner's responsibility to safeguard children from risks and dangers, because young children may not completely appreciate the risk associated with hazards on their said property. Meaning you gotta remove junk, you can't leave, empty things out in the neighborhood, because a kid doesn't know they could come harm himself, and the property owner is legally responsible. Fair? Okay. February 2015, I purchased my property. It was snow covered with bramble. I have, remediated a lot and improved the property over the years. But there were no encumbrances listed on my property. Step one. This summer, I was sent notice by the town that I had to clear cut down to inches the first 10 feet of my property. That was me along with several other people on Round Top Road, including Somerset Hills Country Club. And the enforcement of that, that's a whole nother topic, whether or not it has to be done. I mean, it looked barren, it was horrible. All these normal, the Somerset Hills Country Club, that's a normal thing. It's now clear cut, they put weed killer, it looks horrible. That's not what I'm here to discuss. So when I did, I discovered an open drain pipe on my property, about 20 inches wide. That was July 24th of this year. Now, I had always assumed that that side of my property, I have 3 acres, was just flooding because of natural contours, because I'm not at the top of Round Top Road. And when I moved in, my neighbor's property on Laurelwood Road had flooded to the point where they asked me to maintain a stone alley so that the water would run away from their house. I said, fine, I'm being neighborly. However, I'm now discovering the town put this in. The town has now, shortly, July 24th, the town was made aware. I can go through the list of people. September 5th, and including our town director of the town. On the 15th, I left a voicemail. On the 19th, I had an email back from Mr. McDowell. I had a face-to-face meeting with him on the 20th, explained to him the urgency to this. He agreed, he had been out on my property. He agreed with me that this falls into an attractive nuisance, thereby encumbering my property, agreed that it's damaging my property. And I'm standing here 60 days after I put 90 days, July 24th to now October 23rd, and nothing's been done. You have caused me damages. I cannot sell my property with this attractive nuisance. I'm trying to sell my property. I can't do that. I couldn't bring in topsoil and cover it because one department in the town told me I can, and then Mr. McDowell told me I can't. So we can go through the detail, and I appreciate that I've been over my 3 minutes, and I thank you for the consideration. But since I have not heard any progress on this for 90 days, I am making the Borough Council and the town, putting you guys on notice as of now, that in 5 business days, next Tuesday, the 31st, I will be closing it up, covering it, and remedying it, because I will not keep my life and my children's life at risk for someone falling in, and they're gonna come after me. So you all are on notice. Next Tuesday, I will be sealing it up if you don't bring to me a plan and resolve it by next Tuesday. And then, I'm trying to handle this civilly. As you know, my mother's name is on the wall. My dad's been on the Board of Ed. My dad's been on the Borough Council. My dad's been the mayor. But 90 days jeopardizing me and my family is beyond tolerable. So I sincerely apologize for taking this drastic and for me to come here, but I will not allow my family to be at risk or any other children in the neighborhood. So that's kind of where I'm at, but
Did Darrell say what the purpose of it is?
yes, so the town apparently redirected all the water on the north side of Round Top. Again, prior to me coming in, that's all I keep on
You
doing.
know, when, what decade this was redirected? I mean, this, obviously, I don't think anyone in the house was aware of this at all, so.
Right, well, that honestly, okay, but that's fine. I've been notifying the town since July 24th. Ordinance enforcement, the housing officer came out to my property because I addressed the letter because I had a clear cut. I said, look, what is this? I called ordinance. They said, yes, you can bury it. They said, but you may want to check with Mr. McDowell. I checked with Mr. McDowell, who knows my dad for many, many years, right? It all goes way back. And it was, nope, we need it here. What they did was, I'm on the south side of Round Top. The north side, the golf course side, they redirected all the water that came down the hill to a drain on the north side of Round Top, which runs a beautiful pipe under the road and opens up to a completely open, like 20 some inches wide. And all that water flows on my property. So it needs to be remediated. I've asked him to instantly, I said, please put in, because I came here in person, install a grid, a grate. Let's just something instantly, because I don't want to be legally responsible. I said, then I understand this is done in the right of way, which I'm fine with, right? You have legal right to do it, but the town does not have legal right to destroy my property. So I'm done after 90 days. And this is the point we're at. So I think you said there's a public work meeting tomorrow, perfect timing. I expect to have a resolution in my hand that I'm more than happy to come to any meeting, but next Monday, if I don't have by the end of business, but if I don't have a plan that I agree to by end of next Monday, that it's gonna resolve my issues, Tuesday, I'm sealing it up. So
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing it to us.
Sorry you've had to run around. It's ridiculous that, you would have such run around and back and forth. As you know, we are trying to improve customer service as a borough. There's actually a point of the overriding goal to move that is not going to happen now, to bring people together so we can improve customer service. No matter what the resolution actually is, no resolution ever feel like they're having a back and forth.
well, and forget about the back and forth, like, honestly, I retired in 2019, okay, so no big deal, I'll come down, like memories, no issue. The issue I have, and the reason I'm kind of, I brought it here, and I've been waiting, and I'm like, should I? 90 days. You are the town's lack of action is jeopardizing my family and everything I worked for all those years to be able to retire early and to take care of my children. I don't want to get sued if a kid falls in it. There's a little bus stop, people walk up and down. I mean, I'm the one I fought in town here to lower that to 25 miles an hour because the amount of people I saw almost getting hit coming over the blind hills. Mama bear, anything, other things, fine, it doesn't look pretty. This is jeopardizing me and my family. And that's when business Kathleen's coming out, and I apologize in advance, but I'm drawing a line. I can't tolerate it any longer.
Yeah, no, thank you. We will make sure you get an answer before Monday.
And I want it fixed by Monday.
Yeah.
It's not just an answer.
Right.
I want everyone rallied. I want it resolved by Monday, or I'm hiring a company and coming back after you guys for all the costs. I mean, aggravation, time, this, and loss of sale of my house. It's a 6-bedroom, 4-car, like, we're not talking little money.
Thank you. If I can just make a blanket statement in the future for anybody still listening to this call or the callback, we are all here. Email us, the mayor is very accessible, please don't let it wait and come to this. So I'm sorry that it even has to get here, and I'm sure that, you know, we'll figure out what happened, and Nancy will get on top of it, but just please contact us, yeah. Yeah, do that too. Anyone else from the public? Okay, I'm going to close the public session. We do have an executive session, but we will not be coming out.
I don't have any.
Yeah. Okay, I'll request for adjournment to go to executive. Second, all in favor?
Thank you, everyone. Study time.
Yeah.
Okay.